Mo Tingting stared blankly at Mo Xian. When her grandmother was on her deathbed, he had indeed called her. Mo Tingting's greatest failing was her foolishness. If she was pitiable, it was also because of this foolishness. She simply did whatever her family members did, without any thought of her own. Mo Jinping targeted Mo Xian, and their parents not only turned a blind eye, but even fanned the flames regarding Su Yanran's matter. Mo Qingqing never explicitly stated her position, preferring to watch from the sidelines. She continued to treat Mo Jinping as always, while completely ignoring Mo Xian. Mo Yingying always considered them both her younger brothers. She would naturally favor the one closer to her. As for her, she never considered Mo Xian her brother too. She adopted whatever attitude others had. To put it mildly, she just went with the flow. To put it bluntly, she was a brainless idiot. If you're done, then move. Whether the Mo family lives or dies, what's it to me? Mo Xian had already opened the car door. Don't worry, when Chairman Mo and Ms. Qin reach the age where they require support, I will provide the financial assistance mandated by law, but that's provided they're still alive then. Mo Tingting wanted to say more, but a glance from Luo Muki silenced her, and she could only watch Missouri Xian drive away with Luo Muki. Standing there, she let out a long sigh. Mo Tingting then called Qin and I and told her Mo Xian wouldn't help. Qin and I on the other end of the line wasn't angry. She actually already knew the outcome. She had countless times suspected Mo Xian had asked the Luo family for help to get revenge on them. But looking back at her company's problems, there were almost no external factors. They all stemmed from the hidden dangers she herself had planted by bringing her illegitimate son into the company, and from the betrayal of her eldest daughter. Mo Qingqing showed no mercy. Now, with the Yi family backing her, even if she brazenly used the Mo Corporation as a sacrificial pawn for her own immense profit, what could be done? Legal channels or playing the sympathy card. Neither meant anything to the now virtually invulnerable Mo Qingqing. Looking back at the utter mess her family had become, Qin and I let out a bitter laugh. Even the family portrait on her desk, once used to show her subordinates how family-oriented she was, now seemed incredibly jarring. In that photo, Old Master Mo sat in the center, with her and Mo Changshan on either side, and their 4 children, excluding Mo Xian, surrounding them. Not only was Mo Xian absent, but so was grandmother, yet at the time, she hadn't thought anything was amiss. She, or rather, in everyone's hearts, Mo Xian and grandmother had long been excluded by them. Now, Qin's jewelry was beyond saving. Mo Qingqing had told her so before, but she had been stubborn. For a jewelry company to adulterate its gold products, forget a mid-level brand like hers. Even major brands couldn't survive such a scandal. And this time, her illegitimate son's betrayal caused her to delay the production of a batch of her products. Not only did she default on the contract, but she also had to compensate the other party for their losses. Her parents had passed away in recent years, and in the end, this last bit of family business was completely ruined in her hands. The police had already found out that Jiang Xifeng had been in contact with his father, Jiang Feng. Jiang Feng himself never loved her much. He was only with her because she had money, and getting her pregnant back then was intentional. All these incidents were schemes designed by this father and son duo to extort a large sum of money from her. But if not for her excessive indulgence, or if she had sacrificed Jiang Xifeng when the gold adulteration occurred, these things naturally wouldn't have happened. In fact, she had thought about it. At that time, she had considered asking Mo Xian to come back. But unexpectedly, her family was already mired in a lawsuit at that time, and Mo Xian, on the very day their grandmother passed away, had ruthlessly torn away the facade she and her husband had maintained for so many years. She wasn't without regret back then. She didn't have much energy to take care of Jiang Xifeng, so she considered letting his father take him away. Unexpectedly, Jiang Feng vanished as if he had disappeared off the face of the earth. After some thought, looking at her young and congenitally weak, illegitimate son, she gritted her teeth and kept him. She spent a lot of money to bribe an orphanage, making the Mo family believe he was an orphan. He usually lived outside, and Qin and I paid people to take care of him. Although Mo Changshan and Old Master Mo were suspicious at first, they didn't pay much attention after seeing the orphanage's proof. She probably never imagined that her supposedly flawless scheme could be uncovered not only by the Luo family, but also by her own eldest daughter. She had always believed Mo Changshan was fooled by her act, but in reality, her husband harbored his own secret schemes and had even acted more excessively than she had. Jiang Xifeng still hadn't been caught. and Mo Jinping was still on a run. Qin and I picked up her phone, just about to make a call, but when she saw her blurred reflection in the screen, she felt for the first time that her life wasn't just a failure. It was a complete joke. Just then, the hospital called. Qin and I didn't want to answer, but she had to. "Hello, Mrs. Mo, your husband is still in the ICU, and the funds are no longer sufficient. Move him to a general ward." Qin and I responded coldly. "I'll go to the hospital later to pay the fees." A day in the ICU wasn't cheap. The current Mo family simply couldn't afford such expenses. Besides, Qin and I wished he would die quickly. If not for the fear of being held responsible for murder, she would have even wanted to pull the oxygen tube from that bastard. Yet, inconveniently, she was still his legal wife. Now, in this family, only she and the rather useless Mo Jinping remained. No matter how much she wanted to wash her hands of it, the responsibility would ultimately fall on her. And she did indeed need to go out to meet someone, Mo Jinping's biological mother. Most of the cars had been sold. Only a BMW remained. Driving to the hospital, Li Yuzhen had been on medical parole ever since Mo Jinping got into trouble. After all, she was also an accomplice. It was just that she hadn't fully recovered yet, so she was temporarily staying in the hospital for treatment. Seeing the woman before her, Qin and I felt a wave of contempt. This woman clearly wasn't as beautiful as she was, nor as glamorous as Qin and I had been in her prime. Yet Mo Changshan had been so devoted to her, even allowing her to cause the death of Qin Ni's own son. "I know what you want to ask." Li Yuzhen's face was pale, but seeing Qin and I arrive, she showed no panic. "I didn't mean to kill your son. It was just an accident back then." He kept crying, and the person I arranged didn't know their own strength and covered his mouth, so he died. "My due date was very close to yours. I was also in the hospital at that time. When Mo Changshan, found out, he was angry, but for Jinping's sake, he didn't pursue the matter against me. If not for her special circumstances and the female guard watching, Qin and I would have rushed forward to slap her. You don't have to hate me so much. I just wanted to find someone like him to live a good life, and he just saw that I was willing to be his mistress," Li Yuzhen said nonchalantly. "As for Jinping, I never really cared much for him. I just had to go along with him. Besides, wasn't there you?" Hearing this, Qin and I felt as if she had been slapped. Treating her like a fool, making her raise Li Yuzhen's son, and then speaking of it so nonchalantly? Think I'm despicable, not human? Heh, I'm not you, nor am I Mo Changshan. If I hadn't done this, my family would have forced me to marry an old man back then. Li Yuzhen gave a bitter laugh. Either way, it's living. Might as well be more open-minded about it. At least Mo Changshan had some genuine feelings for me, and he had money. As for Jinping, I admit I spoiled him rotten. I even bear responsibility for his crimes. I admit my guilt, but he himself insisted on stabbing someone. What could I do? When he got addicted to gambling, I couldn't stop him, and I couldn't let anything happen to him, so I could only do that. He's your son. Qin and I had raised Mo Jinping for so many years. Although she wished him dead at this moment, hearing his biological mother's attitude, she couldn't help but roar. I educated him since he was a child. It's because of you, his biological mother, instigating him that he became like this. Oh, please. Your younger son, who didn't have your guidance, is far more accomplished than Jinping. If you were really so capable, he wouldn't have listened to me. Li Yuzhen sneered. I'm not worldly, and I don't know how to raise children. You do, but isn't the result still the same? Qin and I was thoroughly enraged by this, and tried to attack Li Yuzhen despite the police officer's attempts to stop her, but she was ultimately restrained by the female officer. I'm someone who'll go straight to prison after being discharged from the hospital. I have nothing left to hope for. Li Yuzhen spoke harshly, but a hint of despair and helplessness could still be seen in her eyes. You don't need to argue with me. If you want to blame someone, you can't blame me alone. Without Mo Changshan's indulgence, would you and I have ever reached this point today? Li Yuzhen, of course, knew nothing about the Mo family's messy affairs. Mo Jinping hadn't had a chance to tell her much either. Otherwise, he probably would have taunted her. You two are cheating on each other. How are you any better than him? But for now, she was oblivious to everything happening outside, except that her own son was a wanted man. Qin and I knew Li Yuzhen was just shirking responsibility, but she wasn't entirely wrong. Mo Changshan was to blame for her eldest son's death. It was he who had insisted on bringing his illegitimate son home, causing her to neglect Mo Xian. She didn't know just how much Mo Changshan loved the woman before her, but the facts were undeniable. Humiliation, regret, and more than anything, an unvenable rage. Qin and I fiercely pointed a finger at Li Yuzhen, said nothing, and turned to leave. I still have more to say you. Shut up. As Li Yuzhen tried to say more, a female police officer beside her shot her a harsh glare. Since putting on the uniform, she had seen her fair share of civil disputes, but this was the first time she'd encountered such an arrogant and shameless mistress. If it weren't for the uniform she was wearing, she would have slapped the woman a few times. Qin and I was completely unhinged at this moment. That was their child, dead just like that, and he hadn't even cared? In fact, when Mo Changshan agreed to swap the children, it was indeed because of Li Yuzhen. At that time, he felt guilty towards Li Yuzhen, and by extension, towards Mo Jinping. After all, back then, he still had some semblance of humanity, though none of it was directed toward his own wife. Li Yuzhen never intended to raise Qin Mi's child. She verbally agreed to Mo Changshan's request to send the baby to her place to be cared for, but in reality, she planned to send him to an orphanage. However, the person she found got annoyed by the baby's crying and, fearing discovery, covered his mouth. As a result, the newborn, barely a few days old, was suffocated to death. Mo Changshan was indeed furious, but what was done was done. Mo Jinping had already been swapped, so he had no choice but to let the mistake stand. As for Mo Xian's treatment, Old Master Mo bore most of the blame, but from that point on, Mo Changshan doted on Mo Jinping. Unwilling to have his father lose his temper with him daily because of Mo Xian, he discussed it with Qin and I. Qin and I, who wasn't blameless herself at the time, figured Mo Xian at least had his grandmother. She, on the other hand, had 4 children cared for, plus Jiang Xifeng on the side, so she agreed to Mo Changshan's proposal. Qin and I didn't know any of this, nor did she want to. Now, to her, all the blame lay with Mo Changshan. If it weren't for him, her first son wouldn't have died. If it weren't for him, she wouldn't have agreed to let Mo Xian leave, leading her youngest son and herself to this current impasse. She had completely forgotten her own actions. Compared to Mo Changshan, she was only marginally better, if at all. Driving to the hospital where Mo Changshan was staying, Qin and I, her face grim, inquired at the front desk. She learned that Mo Changshan had been moved to a private room, and Annie Wong was still looking after him. Ms. Qin, your husband's medical expenses. Before the nurse at the front desk could finish, Qin and I had already turned and walked away. Finding the room and pushing the door open, she immediately saw Annie Wong, who was about to fetch some water. Madam, what brings you here? Annie Wong was a little surprised to see Qin and I. Sir has been moved to a private room. Before Annie Wong could finish, Qin and I interrupted her with a sudden smile. It's all right, Sister Wong. You should go home and rest. Ting is home alone, and I'm worried. Then, sir, it's fine, I'll take care of him. Qin and I looked at Mo Changshan, who was on the hospital bed with an oxygen tube, her eyes icy. Even though things got so ugly between us, I'm still his wife. With him like this, I can't divorce him now anyway. Annie Wong looked at her and couldn't help but sigh. All right, then I'll go get some hot water. No need. You've been busy for so long. Please go home first. Qin and I took the thermos from her. Oh, right, take this money. Qin and I took out a wad of cash from her bag and handed it to Annie Wong. Then, with a somewhat helpless tone, she said, You know how things have been at home lately. Take this. I heard from Ying that you're planning to resign and go home, right? I don't have much cash on hand right now. Consider this 10,000 as payment for your hard work these past few days. Annie Wong wanted to say something more, but Qin and I insisted. Not wanting to impose, Annie Wong accepted the money, thanked Qin and I, and then turned to leave. Qin and I placed her bag on the bedside table and stared down intently at Mo Changshan. At that moment, she wanted nothing more than to strangle him. She thought of the son she had never met, and then of Mo Xian's cold gaze. She didn't understand medical equipment well, so she simply unplugged everything to prevent any alarms from sounding, and only then did she remove his oxygen tube. Mo Changshan had injured his lungs in the car accident and relied on oxygen. She watched as the face of the husband she had spent so many years with gradually turned bluish-purple, until finally his chest no longer moved. Sister Hui hurriedly pushed open the office door. Luo Xia, who was busy with work, looked up, somewhat puzzled. What's wrong, Sister Hui? Why are you so flustered? Qin and I. She pulled Mo Changshan's oxygen tube. Sister Hui said in a hushed voice. Our people have been watching her. Should we have them call the police? Or? Luo Xia frowned. Sister Hui continued. She went to see Mo Changshan's mistress. It seemed she was provoked. It was just the last straw that broke the camel's back. Luo Xia shook her head. Her husband, eldest daughter, and his illegitimate son betrayed her one after another. Her most beloved son wasn't her own and colluded with his father to deceive her. Her second daughter left home in disappointment. And most importantly, her youngest son wants nothing to do with her for the rest of her life. She's just lumping her own responsibilities onto her husband as well. After a pause, Luo Xia suddenly smiled. Where is she now? She's already left the hospital, looking quite panicked. I see. Gathering evidence for something like this is quite simple. She knows it's only a matter of time. She's probably trying to take care of some last-minute things she still can. However, Luo Xia looked at Sister Hui, her smile growing colder. What do you think would happen if Mo Jinping found out? Well, Mo Jinping has been seen around her company a lot lately. Isn't he planning to deal with her like he did with Su Yanran? You're overthinking it. After all these years as mother and son, he's just trying to play the sentiment card. He knows perfectly well how much Qin and I hates him now. But if he wants to escape, only Qin and I can help him. His injuring Su Yanran was purely an act of temporary retaliation because Su Yanran reported him and she would never help him. Luo Xia put down her pen and continued. But if Mo Changshan were to wake up now, he wouldn't go begging Qin and I. If he knew that Mo Changshan, the person he truly relied on, was killed by Qin and I, that would likely be the final straw for him too. After all, he's been hiding all this time, hoping someone can help him leave. And who is more reliable than his own father, right? Sister Hui nodded, then thought for a moment and asked, Then, if something happens later and Mr. Mo gets involved, don't worry, Xiao Xian won't go, Luo Xia said with a smile. Even if he did, it would only be to watch this family make a fool of themselves. Mo Xian had no idea the bombshell his mother had dropped. If he did, he'd probably be dragging Luo Muki out to buy fireworks right now. As it was, he was stuck continuing their date, inwardly groaning at his developing PTSD. The trigger keywords were hotel, Airbnb, not going home. The thing was, Mo Xian didn't really have a wide range of hobbies. So while he was racking his brain for somewhere to take Luo Muki that wouldn't set off any alarms, she sighed, seemingly guessing his predicament. Brother, she said softly, how about I go with you to the city library? Mo Xian was caught off guard. Luo Muki smiled. It'd be fine at school, but I'm worried about you getting bothered. The city library is quieter, you can focus. Honestly, anywhere was fine. Luo Muki didn't care. She'd be happy just sitting in the car with Mo Xian, spacing out for an afternoon. Mo Xian chuckled wryly. We're supposed to be having fun, even though you've been dragging me out lately. Your thesis can wait. Actually, Luo Muki didn't particularly want Mo Xian to be so fixated on his degree. She and Luo Xia had money, more money than they could ever spend. The annual dividends from the Luo family shares, plus their personal assets, would last them several lifetimes. But Mo Xian refused to give up, and while Luo Xia and Luo Muki weren't thrilled, they didn't say anything. As for their recent frequent visits to the school, they just couldn't stand being away from Mo Xian. In the end, Mo Xian drove to the city library with Luo Muki. As they got out of the car, a hospital was handing out flyers nearby. Just then, Luo Muki received a call from the company. I'll go buy us drinks, okay? Mo Xian whispered to Luo Muki, who smiled and nodded. Walking past the flyer distributors, a staff member handed him one. He didn't think much of it until he saw a familiar name, Shangwan Meng. It was an event promoting mental health awareness, organized by the hospital where Shangwan Meng worked. Shangwan Meng's name was prominently listed. Though there wasn't a photo, she was mentioned as one of the doctors providing information. The surname Shangwan wasn't that common, and the name was the same, and they were both psychologists, making the probability very small. Mo Xian couldn't help but marvel at how much his former classmate had changed. Back in high school, when they were desk mates, they had once discussed their future college majors and desired careers. Shangwan Meng had said she wanted to be a psychologist. No one had expected her to choose such a profession. Looking back, Shangwan Meng seemed to be one of the few classmates who had stuck to their original plan. He rarely contacted his high school classmates. Occasionally, he glanced at the high school group chat. Most of them were either pursuing postgraduate degrees or working, but they all complained about how things weren't what they had envisioned. Either they weren't working in their desired field, or their initial major wasn't ideal, forcing them to switch. Life is rarely ever smooth sailing, and anyone who persevered deserved respect. Su Yanran had left the group after their falling out, and Mo Xian, who had originally intended to leave as well, had stayed, figuring he'd just lurk and observe. Reminiscing about those 3 years of high school, and comparing them to his current life, it felt like a past life. He absently folded the flyer and put it in his pocket, not intending to do anything with it. But then something occurred to him, and he took it out again. Lately, he had been feeling good, and Luo Xia and Luo Miyuki hadn't been pressuring him to recover his memories. Maybe he could ask his old classmate for help. There might be psychological techniques to aid memory recovery. If Shang Wanming couldn't do it, maybe another doctor could. With that thought in mind, Mo Xian stuffed the flyer back into his pocket, thinking he could ask Luo Xia or Luo Miyuki to go with him later. Although he had seen other doctors, Mo Xian approached this with a might-as-well-try attitude. What if it worked? He returned with 2 hot milk teas. Luo Miyuki happily threw herself into his arms, pouting a little. What took you so long? The milk tea shop was a bit far. Did you get impatient? Mo Xian said with a smile, handing her the drink. He didn't mention the flyer. I know you don't like it too sweet, so I only asked for 30% sugar. Luo Miyuki hugged the milk tea Mo Xian had bought her and followed him into the library. Most people would probably find it unbearable to sit with a guy and watch him take notes, but Luo Miyuki didn't mind. She grabbed a novel and sat quietly beside Mo Xian, occasionally glancing at his focused face with a look of adoration. How could she not get enough of this face? She really wanted to kiss her brother. It didn't seem like anyone was around. They had chosen a corner seat by the window, with only Mo Xian and Luo Miyuki. Since it wasn't a holiday, there weren't many people. Unable to resist, Luo Miyuki suddenly kissed Mo Xian on the cheek. The unexpected attack made his face flush instantly. Stop it, Miyuki. Not that she wanted to be embarrassed here, but Luo Miyuki seemed to find this new game fun. After a while, when Mo Xian was absorbed in his studies again, she suddenly leaned in and lightly kissed his lips. Miyuki. Mo Xian looked at her helplessly. I'll be done soon. Please don't mess around. Brother, I want to kiss you. Both Luo Xia and Luo Miyuki had been acting over the top recently. Before Mo Xian could retort, Luo Miyuki kissed him on the lips. After a long moment, she slowly pulled away, smiling and stroking his face. That's to encourage, brother. When you finish, there will be more rewards. Rewards? More like punishments? Mo Xian was speechless, but he reached out with his left hand to ruffle her hair. As he was about to withdraw his hand, Luo Miyuki grabbed it and gently nibbled on his index finger before holding it against her cheek. So Mo Xian could only take notes while awkwardly holding up one hand. Luo Miyuki stopped reading her book and spent her time holding Mo Xian's left hand, sometimes interlacing their fingers, sometimes playing with his fingers. Mo Xian was suddenly reminded of a saying he'd seen online. Women will only affect the speed of my blade. So true. How can anyone concentrate on studying like this? Luo Miyuki didn't really want to do this, but whenever she was alone with Mo Xian, she couldn't control herself. In the past, she and Luo Xia had always respected Mo Xian's choices. If he wanted to continue studying, he could. If he wanted to join a research group, he could. But suppressing their feelings for too long had made them explosive. Their feelings for Mo Xian were already borderline unhealthy, and they had been controlling themselves for a long time. Under Luo Miyuki's constant harassment, Mo Xian finally finished taking his notes. Stretching, he reached into his pocket for his phone, accidentally touching the flyer. All right, Miyuki, I saw them handing out flyers over there about psychological counseling. Hearing Mo Xian's words, Luo Miyuki's pupils briefly contracted, but the change was fleeting. I was thinking, should you or Xia go with me to check it out? Maybe I can recover my memories? Mo Xian smiled and put his arm around Luo Miyuki. It's been so long, and even though it's nerve damage, I want to get checked out and see if a psychologist can help me recover my memories. Okay, brother. Luo Miyuki looked up and smiled. When are you thinking of going? Should I or sister go with you? Sometime soon? It's almost the end of the year. I want to get it checked out beforehand. Mo Xian replied after thinking for a moment. Even though not having those memories doesn't really affect anything, I feel like it would be a regret if I can't remember, especially the memories with you. Brother, it's okay if you can't remember. Luo Miyuki gently stroked Mo Xian's face. But if brother wants to try, then let's try, okay? Mo Xian nodded and told her he was going to return the books and asked her to wait there. He left with a stack of books in his arms. Luo Miyuki frowned slightly and quickly sent a message to her sister, informing her of Mo Xian's idea. Currently in her office, Luo Xia smiled when she saw Luo Miyuki's message. She leisurely replied, "It's okay, just go along with him. A checkup it is. The best would be if everything is checked." Luo Xia said with a slightly frightening smile as she gently stroked the black ring on her index finger, identical to the one Mo Xian wore. What's wrong? Mo Xian, who had just returned, saw Luo Miyuki staring at her phone and walked over to take her hand. Nothing, brother. Luo Miyuki smiled just like she always did. When it came to giving Mo Xian psychological suggestions and hypnotizing him, she was merely Luo Xia's accomplice. Since Luo Xia didn't care, there was no need for her to care either. When Luo Xia had initially established the pharmaceutical lab, aside from expanding into the medical market, it was in fact also for the sisters' selfish purposes. The aromatherapy and medications specifically targeting Mo Xian were all produced in this lab for their private use. With money and the Luo family status, those involved naturally wouldn't dare to spread rumors. Besides, they weren't fools. The dosage the sisters requested was clearly for a single person. To them, it probably just seemed like a peculiar hobby of these two wealthy heiresses. After all, while some of these substances might be illicit, their harm to the body was minimal. The aromatherapy was purely for calming purposes, just that the dosage was a bit high. Moreover, given the Luo family standing, such matters were truly insignificant. Luo Myuki looked at Mo Xian, and a thought suddenly sprouted in her mind. If by any chance he really got angry and wanted to leave, even if it meant making him hate me, I would still keep him locked up by my side. What's wrong? Mo Xian noticed Luo Myuki uncharacteristically lost in thought and reached out to touch her forehead. Are you feeling unwell anywhere? I'm fine, just thinking about some things. Luo Myuki held Mo Xian's hand. Brother, you really won't leave us, right? Why ask such a silly question? Mo Xian chuckled. After all this time, how could you still think I would leave? Pathological dependence is often accompanied by a strong sense of insecurity, a constant fear that the person one cherishes will leave. Even though they had children with Mo Xian, even though they occupied almost all of Mo Xian's life, Luo Myuki still worried sometimes that he might leave. She never wanted to experience those years without Mo Xian a second time. Come on, I'll take you to eat something delicious. Mo Xian's gentle voice instantly pulled Luo Myuki back to reality from her days. Didn't you mention wanting grilled steak the other day? Shall I take you? No, brother, I want Tonghalu now. Luo Myuki seemed to adore Tonghalu. Not just that time at the amusement park, but whenever they went out together, Luo Myuki would ask Mo Xian to buy her one. Of course, he didn't remember that one time when Luo Myuki wanted to see her parents but couldn't, and he had come to comfort her with a Tonghalu as she cried in the courtyard. When she wasn't with Mo Xian, she had bought it for herself, but for some reason, if Mo Xian didn't buy it, she would only take one bite and lose her appetite for it. It was in that moment she understood that what truly tasted sweet to her was the person, not the Tonghalu itself. Qin and I kept wondering if Mo Xian would ever remember her, his birth mother. It was at times like these that she remembered her younger son more vividly. However, she was overthinking it. Mo Xian sometimes couldn't even remember his most precious daughter, let alone her family. Thinking of them would only bring him a sense of misfortune. When she learned that he was with Luo Myuki, Qin and I felt that her actions back at the sanatorium seemed as ridiculous as a clown's. Back then, they had let Mo Jinping snatch Su Yanran away, but the person with Mo Xian now possessed a status and position that even 10 Su Yanrans couldn't compare to. Shaking her head to stop thinking about fruitless matters, Qin and I focused on the present. She still had some properties, jewelry, and luxury goods to her name. The remaining funds from the sale of her company would take some time to arrive, and she had already figured out a way to get this money into Mo Tingting's hands. She hadn't thought about running. There was no point. From the moment she had pulled her husband's oxygen tube, she knew what the outcome would be. After organizing everything, Qin and I quickly contacted a lawyer, entrusting them to handle her affairs. She didn't know how much time she had left. After finishing all this, Qin and I took out her phone, intending to call her daughter, but after some thought, she decided against it. Perhaps the hospital had already notified her, or the police had found her, but she didn't care about any of that anymore. After a moment, she called Mo Qingqing. The call was about to disconnect when Mo Qingqing finally answered. Qingqing, are you okay? Qingni's voice was extremely hoarse. After a moment of silence from the other end, Mo Qingqing slowly asked, Is there something you need? No, it's nothing. I just suddenly didn't know who to talk to. Qingni's expression was dazed, her eyes vacant. Do you hate me that much? Hate your father? Shouldn't I hate you? Mo Qingqing chuckled, a hint of mockery in her voice. You're a woman yourself, and you run a company. How come it wasn't okay for me? Let me tell you this, Mom. What I told Mo Xian back then was true. If you had given up on that good-for-nothing Mo Jinping and let Mo Xian inherit the family business, I would have genuinely been willing to help him. At least Mo Xian isn't like Mo Jinping, useless and greedy, truly believing everything the Mo family owned should be his. Whether Mo Jinping was telling the truth or not, perhaps only she knew. But bringing it up at this moment was undoubtedly like twisting a knife in Chinese heart. If you can't keep your company running, then don't. Don't worry, after I've dealt with things on my end, I won't abandon you all. Chin and I sighed, then said with a bitter smile, your father. Never mind, it's nothing. As long as you're happy. And Mo Jinping didn't say anything more and hung up directly. Chin and I didn't know Mo Jinping's current situation in the Yi family. Even if she did, what difference would it make? Staring blankly out the office window, watching the sky gradually darken, a vast emptiness and despair slowly enveloped her. On the family photo on her desk, the smiles on everyone's faces, including her own in the picture, now seemed to mock her. Chin and I suddenly grabbed the photo and threw it violently to the ground. Her phone buzzed with call after call, message after message from Mo Jinping, but she didn't even glance at them. Finally, she just turned her phone off. The sky grew darker. Chin and I slowly got up, picked up her bag, and left. Looking at the once bustling floor, now utterly silent, she found it laughable. From beginning to end, Mo Jinping had only done 3 things. Given the evidence to her and her husband, met old Master Mo once, and sold his shares to Mo Jinping. Just as he had said himself, he had only done what needed to be done, nothing more. Descending to the underground parking lot, Chin and I walked dazedly towards her car. She didn't know where to go. Home. Was that villa still a home? While she was still in a daze, a shadowy figure furtively followed her. Beneath a hat, a man with a disposable mask, sunken eyes, and a gaze full of venomous hatred trailed her. Chin and I still didn't understand Mo Jinping well enough. Or perhaps no one truly understood his selfishness and depravity. His revenge on Su Yanran showed that he would always blame others for his mistakes, never once considering that he himself was the one at fault. Just as Luo Xia had said, Mo Changshan was his last hope. He had been hiding all this time, hoping Mo Changshan would wake up and help him. And he had been lurking around Chinese company, hoping for a chance to use their 20-plus years of mother-son bond, so that even if she didn't forgive him, she would at least give him money to escape abroad. But unexpectedly, he received a text message from a hidden number and an email. The email contained a secretly taken photo of Mo Changshan being found dead by doctors. There was also a video of Chin and I leaving Mo Changshan's hospital room, looking flustered. The text message contained only one sentence. The one who killed your father is President Chin. Chin and I had frozen all of Mo Jinping's bank cards. Having spent this period hiding, his already frayed nerves snapped, and he completely broke down. When he went to stab Su Yanran, he had been driven by the thought, if I can't have a good life, neither can you. Now, learning that Chin and I had killed Mo Changshan and that he had no chance of escape, Mo Jinping despaired even more, and the resentment in his heart deepened. However, unnoticed by both him and Chin and I, 3 tall men in a black sedan were watching their every move. Hasn't Miss Wee given instructions yet? The man in the driver's seat asked, looking back. What does the eldest miss want? When do we make our move? One of the men in the back seat was looking down at his phone. After a moment, he looked up and said, the eldest miss is in a meeting. Miss Wee said to ask the second miss. Hurry up. Otherwise, damn it, he's gonna make a move soon. Are we supposed to save this person or not? After a short while, the man in the back seat seemed to receive a message. He hurriedly looked down to check it, then said with some resignation, the second miss's instruction is to wait until blood is drawn. The other 2 men looked at each other. Wait until blood is drawn. Was there a specific standard for that? Chin and I felt someone behind her and turned her head sharply. Mo Jinping was already there, eyes red, and stabbed at her with a knife. Ah! Chin and I screamed and instinctively raised her bag to block. Mo Jinping had used too much force in this strike, and unexpectedly, the knife pierced right into the bag. So unprofessional. The man in the driver's seat slapped the steering wheel. If you're not absolutely sure with the first strike, don't use so much force. Bro, is this really the time to be saying that? The other 2 looked at him, speechlessly. This guy was actually giving commentary. Chin and I threw the bag away and ran for it, not caring about anything else. Mo Jinping frantically pulled the knife out and chased after her. After all, Chin and I was a pampered middle-aged woman wearing high heels. Mo Jinping quickly caught up with her, grabbed her hair, pulled her backward, and plunged the knife into the small of her back. This, the man in the back hesitated. Does that count as drawing blood? I guess so. Mo Jinping pulled the knife out. Anger, fear, and all sorts of emotions were stimulating his brain. Coupled with Qin Ni's screams of pain, Mo Jinping completely lost his mind and stabbed her in the back again. Stop! The three men had run up to him and kicked him away. The knife was still stuck in Qin Ni's back. The three men started punching and kicking Mo Jinping. Mo Jinping might be able to stab a woman with a knife, but he was no match for them. Ever since the illegitimate son incident, the Luo family had spent a lot of money and effort on security. These bodyguards were all veterans from the army and armed police, carefully selected by the Luo family. Their physical fitness and professional skills were outstanding. As for why they were beating him now, it was entirely because of orders from above to beat him up before sending him in. It wasn't because they had any grievances from watching him these past few days, definitely not. The three bodyguards beat Mo Jinping mercilessly. The driver seemed to remember something and took Mo Jinping's phone, putting it in his pocket. He didn't know why Sister Hui had instructed him to do this, but they followed orders from above. Bro, shouldn't we call 110 and 120? The one in the back pointed to Qin Ni, who was lying on the ground. She didn't seem dead, but the ground was stained red with blood. Damn it. How do we forget about her? What are you waiting for? Call. 110 took Mo Jinping and the three men away, and 120 took Qin Ni away. The three brothers were completely calm. Sister Hui had told them that nothing would happen, and the young lady had already instructed that Lawyer Chu would be sent. However, they were still criticized and educated by the police in the end. We know you were trying to stop him, but this was a bit too heavy-handed. If they hadn't seen the surveillance footage confirming that Mo Jinping had intentionally injured someone, they would have suspected that Mo Jinping owed them money, and these three were debt collectors. Ribs were broken, the left leg was fractured, and his face was covered in blood. The false teeth that Mo Xian had knocked out and had replaced were not only not saved, but he lost a few more. They didn't hide the fact that they were Luo family bodyguards, especially since Chu Nan came in person. This famous Kyoto lawyer, coupled with the Luo family's background, made the police not bother to investigate further. After all, the Luo family status was there, and Mo Jinping was a wanted criminal. In the end, the three of them even somehow received a Good Samaritan award. Leaving the police station, Chunan glanced at the three of them, held out his hand, and said, "Did you get the phone?" The driver then remembered and handed Mo Jinping's phone to Chunan. After confirming, Chunan put the phone in his bag and took out a bank card. "You did well. There are 3 million in this card, 1 million for each of you. You know what to say and what not to say, right? Lawyer Chu, don't worry." The driver respectfully accepted the card. It wasn't the first time they had helped the Luo family handle this kind of thing, and they knew the rules. Besides, the Luo family was always generous and the treatment was good. Unless they were crazy, who would go against real benefits? Chunan nodded, told them to go back and rest, and that they were on paid leave for a few days before getting into the car and leaving. As for everything that happened, Mo Xian was completely unaware. He was currently busy helping Luo Muki cut her steak. This was a popular internet restaurant, and the food was very good. Luo Muki had mentioned it casually, and Mo Xian had paid attention to it for a long time before choosing this place. "Brother, feed me." Luo Muki was like she had no bones, sitting next to Mo Xian and clinging to him, opening her mouth like a kitten waiting to be fed. Mo Xian could only take a piece with a fork and slowly bring it to her mouth. Luo Muki, satisfied, ate the steak, then leaned on Mo Xian. Whenever she wanted to eat, she would act spoiled and open her mouth, and Mo Xian could only meaninglessly urge her to eat herself, and then continue to feed her. Single men and women who passed by looked at this scene with jealousy, and Mo Xian couldn't help but shrink his neck. These two were already ridiculously good-looking, and they were so lovey-dovey, it was simply a ruthless blow to ordinary passers-by. Luo Muki, however, seemed to not see it at all, and enjoyed Mo Xian's feeding with peace of mind. While eating, Mo Xian's phone suddenly rang. It was a call from an unfamiliar number. He didn't want to answer at first, but the calls kept coming, and Mo Xian found it annoying and wanted to hang up and block the number. In his experience, whoever called him so persistently was either Su Yanran or someone from the Mo family. He didn't want to say a word to either of them. "Brother, why don't you answer it?" Luo Muki glanced at her phone. Maybe it's really something important? Hearing Luo Muki's words, Mo Xian nodded and chose to answer. Mo Tingting's sobbing voice came from the phone. "Mo Xian, I beg you to come to the hospital, Mom. Mom is dying." Mo Xian was stunned for a moment, and Mo Tingting continued to cry and say, "Jinping, it was Jinping who did it. He somehow appeared in Mom's company parking lot and stabbed Mom." Mo Xian couldn't help but chuckle. He had really underestimated Mo Jinping in the past. The first time, he stabbed Su Yinran and made her infertile, and the second time, he sent his own mother, who had loved him for more than 20 years, away. Mo Xian was not surprised at all by Mo Jinping's actions. He was the kind of person who wouldn't let anyone else have a good life if he couldn't. The funny thing was that besides him, probably only Mo Qingqing had seen through Mo Jinping's bones and realized that he was an incurable rotten person. "Brother, why don't we go?" Luo Myuki held Mo Xian's hand. "Although she wasn't a good person in the past, if she's really dying, it wouldn't hurt for you to go and see her. After all, without her, there would be no you." Mo Xian nodded, then said to Mo Jinping on the phone, "Tell me where, I'll be there in a while." After hanging up the phone, Mo Xian couldn't help but find it funny. He wondered what his own mother was feeling right now. No matter what, she had been good to Mo Jinping for so many years, and even wanted to give him her company without knowing the truth. In the end, this was what she got in return. Mo Xian was not surprised that Mo Jinping would resent Qin and I. That was just the kind of person he was. Others could only be good to him and follow his wishes. If anything went against his will, he would harbor resentment. But who was to blame? His own mother? Qin and I and Mo Chanshan were the ones who taught him the most on weekdays. Mo Xian didn't know where he had heard saying, but he felt that it was very appropriate to use at this time. Some people are not worthy to be parents. Even Mo Qingqing, the capable eldest daughter, had been forced into her current state to some extent by this couple. "Brother, don't be sad." Luo Myuki held Mo Xian's hand. "They're not worth you being sad for them." "No, I'm not sad. I just feel that it's finally coming to an end." Mo Xian took a deep breath. "Let's go, Myuki. Since Madame Qin wants to see me, then I'll go see her." Chapter 100. Thank you all for your company and support along the way. For all, Mo Xian and Luo Myuki had a meal before they arrived at the hospital. When Mo Jinping saw him, she seemed to want to say something, but firstly, she was afraid of Luo Myuki, and secondly, what was there to say? Mo Xian's eyes held not even a trace of resentment. If anything, just annoyance, as if they were disrupting his life. Excessive blood loss, and her internal organs are damaged. Mo Jinping sobbed. "Also, Dad's gone too. Mom, for some reason, pulled his oxygen tube today." Mo Xian couldn't help but chuckle. "You think she shouldn't have done that?" With that, Mo Xian ignored Mo Jinping and entered the hospital room with Luo Myuki. Qin and I lay there, tubes inserted into her body, her gaze unfocused. When she saw Mo Xian, her eyes flickered with a brief light. Mo Xian." Qin and I called out to him, her voice as faint as a thread. But Mo Xian merely stood silently by her side, his expression impassive. No sorrow, no joy, not even a hint of pity. He just watched her quietly. Son, Ms. Qin," Mo Xian interrupted her coolly. "We've disowned each other, haven't we?" Qin and I smiled bitterly, her gaze growing increasingly vacant. With a final effort, she propped herself up, a hint of pleading in her voice. "Son, I'm dying. Lastly, can you forgive me?" Mo Xian didn't answer her. Instead, he glanced back at Mo Jinping and asked, "Chairman Mo deaf in her left ear?" Mo Jinping paused, then nodded instinctively. Mo Xian wore an expression of understanding, then leaned down close to Qin's left ear and whispered something. He then turned and walked out of the room with Luo Myuki. Mo Xian, you haven't." Qin and I exhausted all her strength, but gradually, she could no longer make a sound. Her eyes wide, she stared fixedly at Mo Xian and Luo Myuki's departing backs as the monitors beside her began to blare frantically, until finally, the ECG flatlined. Hearing Mo Jinping's grief-stricken wails from the room behind them, Luo Myuki asked curiously, "Brother, why did you speak in her deaf ear?" "Because I never intended for her to hear my answer. It was deliberate." Mo Xian shrugged, then asked, "Myuki, do you think that was a bit too much?" Mo Xian wasn't asking because he thought he was wrong, but rather because he was worried Luo Myuki might overthink it. However, Luo Myuki just smiled and said, "How could it be? Brother, they deserved it." "But what exactly did you say to her in the end?" Mo Xian leaned close to Luo Myuki's ear and whispered, "I told her, forgive you? Like hell I will." Mo Xian wasn't that kind, nor was he that magnanimous. If he forgave them for the harm they'd done to him and his grandmother, then, just as he'd told Mo Jinping before, his conscience wouldn't be clear. Returning home with Luo Myuki, they found Luo Xia sitting on the sofa, looking at some documents in her hand. For some reason, Luo Xia looked unwell. Her face was pale, and her lips were whitish. When Luo Wei'er and Luo Shuer saw Mo Jinping return, they didn't rush over excitedly as usual, but carefully walked to his side. "Daddy, Mommy's not feeling well," Luo Wei'er said, pointing a small finger at Luo Xia. When Luo Xia saw Mo Jinping and Luo Miyuki return, she merely smiled faintly, not wanting to say much. "Xia, are you okay?" Mo Jinping and Luo Miyuki walked over to her. "Why do you look so pale?" "I don't know what's wrong." Luo Xia gently took Mo Jinping's hand. "I started feeling unwell during the meeting earlier, and I felt nauseous and queasy. I even threw up twice." Hearing this, Luo Miyuki, standing to the side, looked at her sister with some surprise. When Luo Xia had first been pregnant with Luo Wei'er, her morning sickness had been quite severe, and the symptoms were very similar to now. Considering that for a long time, she and her sister hadn't used any protection with Mo Jinping. Although they had indeed taken medication after discussing the issue of a second child, it was said that medication wasn't foolproof. And counting the time, it had been almost 2 months since they had drugged Mo Jinping. Luo Xia's previous morning sickness had seemed to start around a similar time frame. "Sis, you couldn't be pregnant, could you?" Hearing Luo Miyuki's words, Luo Xia looked up in confusion. Then she too remembered that contraceptive pills weren't absolutely effective. Mo Jinping stared blankly at Luo Xia. The first time, he had only found out he was a father after the children were born. This situation was a first for him, and for a moment his mind went blank, clearly not having processed it yet. Luo Xia was about to refute it, but on second thought, considering how passionate she and her sister were with Mo Jinping, and their reluctance to use protection, plus not being too careful with emergency contraception, a second pregnancy, seemed quite plausible. Luo Wei'er and Luo Shuer clearly didn't understand what was happening yet, looking at them with innocent confusion. Luo Miyuki looked at the two little munchkins and suddenly grinned mischievously. "Well, this is great. You're going to have a little brother or a sister soon." "A little brother? A little sister?" Hearing this, the two little munchkins immediately sensed that something was amiss. They couldn't have a little brother or sister, or Daddy wouldn't love only them anymore. "We don't want a little brother or sister." The two little ones threw themselves into Mo Jinping's arms and burst into tears. The sound was ear-splitting, a desperate, full-throated wail. Mo Jinping was snapped back to reality by the two little ones. While comforting them, he turned to Luo Xia and said, "Xia, I'll drive you to the hospital for a checkup. If you really are pregnant again, I need to know how to take care of you." Back then, as a father, he hadn't fulfilled his responsibilities. Although with the Luo family's wealth, Luo Xia and Luo Miyuki would undoubtedly receive the best care, he still felt deeply guilty. Luo Xia had a bit of a headache. She was already feeling unwell, and Luo Miyuki just had to choose this moment to tell the two little munchkins about it. Glaring fiercely at Luo Miyuki, who clearly enjoyed stirring up trouble, Luo Xia said coldly, "Aren't you going to call the private doctor immediately?" Luo Miyuki had only meant to tease the two girls a little, not expecting them to react so strongly. Fortunately, Mo Jinping was there. He gently comforted his daughters for a few moments, and the two little ones gradually quieted down. After asking Uncle Zheng to arrange for someone to take Luo Wei'er and Luo Shuer back to their room, Mo Jinping gently held Luo Xia's hand, his eyes red-rimmed. "Your morning sickness is this severe? Why didn't you tell me?" "It's nothing, Xiao Xian. I'm willing," Luo Xia smiled, holding Mo Jinping's hands tightly. "Don't listen to Miyuki's nonsense. It's not necessarily a pregnancy. Please, don't let it be another pregnancy," she thought. Otherwise, with Mo Jinping's temperament, he probably wouldn't have any time left for them. She and Luo Miyuki had seen how Mo Jinping was when he took care of Luo Wei'er and Luo Shuer. Although they had intentionally wanted the children to be closer to Mo Jinping to better tie him down, Mo Jinping had indeed been completely devoted. Otherwise, the two girls wouldn't be so clingy to their father. Soon, the family doctor arrived. She was a woman in her early 30s and had brought a pregnancy test with her. After the doctor's examination, combined with the pregnancy test result, it showed not pregnant. It was just a stomach issue caused by the cold weather and not paying attention to her diet. The young mistress had similar symptoms during her morning sickness, very alike, but it's not pregnancy, the doctor said with a smile. "If you're still worried, Mr. Mo, you can take the young mistress to the hospital tomorrow for a more detailed checkup, but I believe the result will likely be the same." Luo Xia and Luo Miyuki looked at each other, and both secretly sighed in relief. Luo Miyuki had also secretly checked herself just now. She wasn't pregnant either. With 2 daughters already, they'd have to be more careful in the future. Or perhaps, well, stick to less risky methods? However, Mo Xian still spoke with the doctor for a while, asking about Luo Xia's issues during her morning sickness and how to manage them better. Taking advantage of this moment, Luo Muki carefully asked, "Sis, what if, by some chance, one of us gets pregnant again? Will we keep it or not?" Luo Xia was covered with a blanket. Having just taken her medicine and drunk some hot soup, she felt much more comfortable. Hearing Luo Muki's question, Luo Xia didn't answer but looked up at Mo Xian, who was talking to the doctor. "I don't know either. I don't want to." Luo Xia thought for a moment. "But it would be Xiao Xian's child. Muki, if he got pregnant again, would you want to have it, or—" Luo Xia didn't say it explicitly, but Luo Muki understood her meaning. To have it or not. For a moment, neither sister knew what to do about this question. Within a single day, Mo Tingting was the only one left in the Mo family. When Mo Qingqing learned of her parents' deaths, she said nothing. Her tone didn't even betray a hint of change. She merely stated calmly, "I know." As for Mo Yingying, all contact was lost after she went abroad. Her phone was unreachable, and Mo Tingting's messages to her social media, whether WeChat or anything else, vanished without a trace. And Mo Xian? Mo Tingting watched him arrive and then depart, knowing she had no right to stop him. After handling her parents' funeral arrangements and seeing off the police officers who had come to the house, it was already midnight when Mo Tingting returned to the Mo family villa. She had always considered living in a villa a mark of prestige, something befitting her status as the Mo family's third young miss. But today, gazing at the empty, deserted villa, she felt a fear she had never known before. Devoid of life, cold and silent. In truth, Mo Xian's feelings every time he returned to the Mo family home were no different from hers. Perhaps even worse. At least now, Mo Tingting wouldn't be scorned or mistreated by others. She was simply alone. "Andy Wong," Mo Tingting called out softly. Finally, on the coffee table in the living room, she found a note left by Annie Wong. Her work had actually already ended. She had stayed on to care for Mo Changshan purely out of consideration for her many years of service to the Mo family. Upon hearing that Mo Changshan and Qin and I were both dead, Annie Wong had sighed, left a note asking her son to pick her up, and departed taking only her personal belongings. She hadn't touched anything else. Seeing Annie Wong's note, the thread holding Mo Tingting together finally snapped. She collapsed to her knees and wept uncontrollably. Mo Qingqing stood before the floor-to-ceiling window in her office, her gaze vacant as she stared at the scenery outside. She had remained in her office ever since receiving Mo Tingting's call. Tears slowly trickled down her face, and Mo Qingqing desperately wiped them away, as if trying to prove she wasn't crying. She wasn't Mo Xian. Not only had he been sent away as a child, but he also hadn't been treated fairly when he returned home. Thus, Mo Xian felt nothing for their deaths. Even if he had harbored any feelings, they would have been completely eroded by their repeated indulgence of Mo Jinping and their harsh treatment of him. She, after all, had grown up with her parents. No matter how much she resented or schemed against them in her heart, they were, ultimately, the people who had raised her. Mo Qingqing stumbled slightly as she walked to her desk and picked up a cigarette pack. Her hand trembled so much that she accidentally pulled out several cigarettes. "I won't regret this." Mo Qingqing placed a cigarette to her lips, lit it with a trembling hand, and took a deep drag. After a long silence, suppressed sobs finally echoed through the office. She had believed herself to be devoid of any affection for anyone in the Mo family, but now that her parents were truly gone, Mo Qingqing discovered she wasn't as heartless as she had thought. A heavy snowfall once again blanketed the entire land, as if everything was hidden beneath a layer of white. Mo Xian couldn't help but muse that it seemed to snow frequently in the capital city this year, though it didn't affect his current mood. Regarding the deaths of his parents within a single day, Mo Xian felt no significant emotional turmoil. Setting aside their actions, Mo Xian had always been grateful to his grandmother for diminishing their presence in his heart from a young age. His grandmother knew it was cruel and unfair to Mo Xian, but she had seen through that family long ago. Rather than deceive Mo Xian and let him face disappointment, or even despair later on, it was better to prevent him from having any hope from the start. "Brother, you should take this too," Luo Muki's voice interrupted Mo Xian's thoughts. Turning around, Mo Xian felt a throbbing pain in his head. "Muki, even if we are leaving, it's not right now, is it?" Mo Xian gave a wry smile as he looked at Luo Muki, who was directing several maids to pack his clothes. Why start preparing so early? It's better to sort out your clothes for other seasons now, brother, than to rush around chaotically later, right? Luo Miyuki seemed very happy, even helping to fold Mo Xian's clothes and place them in the suitcases. In reality, Mo Xian hadn't owned so many clothes. These were all gifts from the two sisters after he arrived. But do we need to pack this much? Mo Xian asked curiously. Are we never coming back? We'll come back, of course, but we're going to settle there permanently, so it's best to take everything. Hearing Luo Miyuki's words, Mo Xian couldn't help but nod. It seemed that was indeed the case. Oh, right, brother, didn't you say you wanted to go for that psychological counseling? Luo Miyuki suddenly looked up at Mo Xian. Do you want me to go with you? Mo Xian was about to agree when Luo Miyuki's phone rang. It was a call from her company. There was an issue in the design department that needed her attention. I'll go with you, Lil Xian. Luo Xia stood outside the room, a shawl draped over her shoulders. Her complexion had improved considerably. She wore gold-rimmed glasses and held a book in her hand. No need. Perhaps I should just go by myself. Mo Xian quickly shook his head upon seeing Luo Xia. You've just recovered. You should rest more at home, shouldn't you? I'm fine. It was just a dietary issue. Besides, have you forgotten? I double majored in university. Apart from finance, I studied psychology. Luo Xia smiled. Wait for me, I'll go change. Giving him no chance to refuse, Luo Xia turned and left. Mo Xian wanted to follow, but Luo Miyuki held him back and said softly, Brother, if you go with elder sister, she understands some of the professional aspects. Wouldn't that be more convenient? Although Luo Miyuki didn't know what Luo Xia was thinking, she felt it might be better if Luo Xia went. However, she wasn't entirely sure. She had always felt that things on a purely psychological level weren't easily perceptible. But Luo Xia had told her that nothing was ever 100% certain. Mo Xian proactively suggesting he wanted to recover his past memories was a good thing for them. But the problem was Luo Xia had mentioned this could very well awaken other memories. For instance, the things they had done to Mo Xian. With deep hypnotic stimulation, those memories Mo Xian was supposed to have forgotten might resurface. Originally, Mo Xian had been in a half-dreaming, half-waking state. He had merely forgotten, but that didn't mean his brain hadn't recorded them. Otherwise, their psychological suggestions wouldn't have succeeded. In the past, Mo Xian had been completely unaware, plus Luo Xia hadn't started hypnotizing Mo Xian when she first took him for treatment. But seeing her elder sister completely unfazed, even offering to go with him, Luo Miyuki, though knowing her sister must have a plan to dare such a thing, still felt uneasy. While Mo Xian was packing with the maids, she quietly slipped into Luo Xia's room. You've worked hard, Dr. Shangwan. Having just finished a counseling session, Shangwan Meng leaned back in her chair exhausted. A female colleague beside her handed her a cup of hot water. Thank you, Shangwan Meng said softly, accepting the cup with both hands. The colleague, a bit older than her, looked at Shangwan Meng and suddenly asked, Dr. Shangwan, at your age, how come you haven't found a boyfriend yet? You're such a great catch, and your professional skills are excellent too. Haven't met the right one, I guess? Shangwan Meng smiled. Besides, I want to focus on establishing my career first. As for other things, I'm not really thinking about them right now. This wasn't the first time someone had brought this up. Her mother had also been keen on setting her up on blind dates. But Shangwan Meng had absolutely no intention of doing so. Huang Yi had tried to persuade her to try dating other men, reminding her that Mo Xian wasn't the only man in the world. But each time, she would politely decline, even after seeing Mo Xian with Luo Miyuki, even knowing he now had 2 children. Sometimes, Shangwan Meng desperately wanted to know what Mo Xian had been through, why he had children so young. She had specifically inquired about Luo Miyuki, such a radiant girl, and the way she looked at Mo Xian couldn't help but stir something in Shangwan Meng. At least in the past, she had never seen such a look in Su Yinran's eyes. When Su Yinran looked at Mo Xian, it was always with a hint of triumph, of showing off. Was there love? Perhaps, but it was mixed with many other factors. Maybe because Mo Xian was so outstanding, and yet he had been devoted to her, treated her as special. Pulling herself from her memories, Shangwan Meng glanced at the time. It was almost lunch break. She tidied up the items and documents on her desk, then took out some study materials and began to read attentively. The hospital's initiative was well-intentioned. Mental illnesses are different from physical ones, and many people don't give mental health the attention it deserves. They hoped this program would encourage more people to take it seriously. She was still in her internship period, so she was only responsible for some of the counseling work. Although she had graduated from an Ivy League university with excellent grades in her major, she had, after all, just joined the hospital and was still quite young. A nurse came in and said to the female doctor who had been talking to Shangwan Meng earlier, "Did you hear? The vice president of the Luo Corporation is here," and she brought her boyfriend. "Our specialist is seeing him now." The Luo Corporation? Her boyfriend? Shangwan Meng, who had been looking down, suddenly raised her head and asked in surprise, "Is it the Luo family's second daughter?" "No, it's their eldest daughter, Luo Xia." The nurse said this with a hint of envy. Some people are just born lucky. Not only beautiful, but also born with a silver spoon. I heard the Luo family even has shares in our hospital. I just saw our boyfriend. He's tall, wears glasses, and is quite handsome. Tall, wears glasses, handsome. Shangwan Meng's first thought was Mo Xian. But then she reconsidered. It didn't seem right. The beautiful girl with Mo Xian was clearly Luo Myuki. So, what's the name of the man she brought? Hearing Shangwan Meng's question, both the female doctor and the nurse looked at her in surprise. After all, Shangwan Meng rarely indulged in such gossip. Why was she suddenly so interested in this today? Dr. Shangwan, do you know someone from the Luo family? Hearing the doctor's question, Shangwan Meng realized she might have seemed a bit too eager and, looking down, said embarrassedly, "No, I was just curious. I hadn't heard that the Luo family's eldest daughter had a boyfriend." "Who knows? The affairs of wealthy families are beyond us," the nurse said, not noticing Shangwan Meng's unease. "But it seems his eldest Luo daughter really cares about this guy. She not only came with him personally, but has been by his side the whole time." Shangwan Meng found it hard to believe it could be Mo Xian. In her memory, Mo Xian wasn't the type to two-time someone, especially not two sisters from the Luo family. Even if one didn't follow business news, the Luo family was very prominent in the capital city. If Mo Xian did something like that, wouldn't he fear retaliation from the two sisters, or even the entire Luo family? Not wanting to dwell on it further, Shangwan Meng picked up her materials, said a brief goodbye to them, and left. As she walked out of the office, Shangwan Meng suddenly felt how small the world was. It wasn't long ago that she had run into Mo Xian and Luo Myuki with their children, and today she encountered Luo Myuki's sister with her boyfriend. "Xia, it should be all right, shouldn't it?" A voice incredibly familiar to Shangwan Meng sounded nearby. She whipped her head around to see Mo Xian standing to one side, holding a form, and opposite him was a woman who looked strikingly similar to Luo Myuki. Not only was she just as breathtakingly beautiful, but compared to Luo Myuki, she was more mature with a different aura, more of a cool, sophisticated, ice queen type. "It's nothing. The doctor said your condition can only be addressed by trying deep hypnosis," Luo Xia said gently to Mo Xian. "Don't worry, Xiao Xian, I'll bring you back tomorrow for the hypnosis therapy. Just think of it as taking a nap and having a dream." Shangwan Meng stared blankly at the two of them. It had to be said, whether Mo Xian was with Luo Xia or Luo Myuki, they always looked like a picture-perfect couple. But that wasn't what was on her mind. The way Luo Xia looked at Mo Xian was exactly the same as Luo Myuki's gaze, an affection that couldn't be hidden. And Mo Xian, just as when he looked at Luo Myuki, had eyes full of adoration. "All right, let's not talk about it anymore," Luo Xia said, taking Mo Xian's hand. "Myuki will be here from the company soon. We can all have lunch together and then go back together." Others might not understand the implications, but Shangwan Meng, upon hearing this, was utterly shocked. The older sister and the younger sister's boyfriend coming to see a psychologist together, and then the younger sister joining them for lunch. She suddenly felt her mind reeling, completely unable to comprehend the relationship between these three. Moreover, when Luo Xia mentioned Luo Myuki, her tone was calm and open. This didn't seem like she was having an affair behind her sister's back. On the contrary, it somehow felt completely open and above board. A wildly absurd thought suddenly struck Shangwan Meng, yet she hardly dared to believe it. Could it be that the three of them were together? While Shangwan Meng was still lost in her wild conjectures, Mo Xian and Luo Xia had already left. From beginning to end, Mo Xian's gaze had been fixed only on Luo Xia. He hadn't even noticed his former classmates standing nearby. Why would he come to see a psychologist? And for hypnosis? Shangwan Meng, recalling their earlier conversation, couldn't help but seek out the professor who had just treated Mo Xian. The professor didn't reveal the full details, only telling her that Mo Xian had amnesia. Amnesia? Seeing Shangwan Meng's shocked expression, the professor couldn't help but frown. You know him? He, he was my high school classmate. We were in the same class. You were classmates? Hasn't he ever mentioned that his memory nerves were damaged in the past, causing him to lose some of his memories? The professor seemed surprised. Actually, there's no harm in telling you. Your high school classmate wants to try deep hypnosis to see if he can awaken those lost memories. However, the young lady from the Luo family mentioned that they had him checked before, and it was advised not to try and forcibly awaken his memories. But it's been a while now, so it should be fine. Besides, the young man himself said he wants to give it a try, so we've scheduled the hypnosis therapy for tomorrow. Shang Wanming was somewhat surprised because, back in high school, Mo Xian hadn't shown any signs of amnesia at all. And if he had amnesia, why did he still remember Su Yanran? This professor usually held Shang Wanming in high regard, not only because she graduated from a prestigious university, but also because the young woman was very serious about her work, down to earth, and eager to learn. If you're concerned, you can come and be my assistant tomorrow, the professor smiled. Technically, since you know him, it might not be entirely appropriate for you to be involved, but I'm the one in charge of the treatment. You'll just be responsible for taking notes on the side. After a moment of silence, Shang Wanming nodded gently. Okay, I understand, Professor. The next day, when Mo Xian and Luo Xia arrived together, Mo Xian was very surprised to see Shang Wanming. He had told Luo Xia and Luo Muki that a high school classmate of his worked at this hospital and was also a psychologist. The Luo family held shares here, and Luo Xia had specifically investigated Shang Wanming. She came from a scholarly family, and her parents were both highly educated intellectuals. Moreover, when Mo Xian mentioned Shang Wanming, his tone was frank, filled with admiration and respect, but no hint of any other sentiment. He had initially considered contacting Shang Wanming, but Luo Xia had found him a leading authority in psychotherapy at this hospital. Besides, Mo Xian himself felt it would be impolite to trouble a classmate he hadn't seen in ages and rarely contacted. Strictly speaking, it was only because he'd seen his classmate's name on a flyer that, after a moment of reflection, he'd suddenly thought of trying to awaken his memories. Long time no see, Shangwan. Mo Xian greeted her naturally, his tone just as it had always been. Shangwan Meng smiled, her gaze shifting to Luo Xia beside Mo Xian, and asked softly, long time no see. This is, yes, my girlfriend. Mo Xian's reply was somewhat vague. For him, it was because Luo Muki was also involved, making the relationship between the three of them a bit complicated. Shangwan Meng, however, felt even more bewildered. Could it really be so outrageous, sisters with the same man? Only then did Luo Xia turn her gaze to Shangwan Meng. With just one look, Luo Xia could tell that Shangwan Meng liked Mo Xian, or at least had strong feelings for him. Yet, Luo Xia simply smiled, extended her hand to Shangwan Meng, and said, hello, Dar. Shangwan, I've heard Xiao Xian mention you. You were high school classmates, right? Shangwan Meng was momentarily flustered but still reached out and shook Luo Xia's hand. The hand she touched was ice cold. The stunning woman before her, with her slightly odd smile, made Shangwan Meng feel deeply uncomfortable. After some brief pleasantries, the professor chatted a bit more with Mo Xian, inquiring about the state of his past memories. They feel familiar, but it's like they're bound by something, Mo Xian replied after a moment's thought. Every time Xia and cough, and I have tried, even looking at old photos doesn't bring back any impression. He had almost blurted out Luo Muki's name. Mo Xian hadn't yet realized how completely Luo Xia and Luo Muki had permeated his life. Inadvertently, everything about him seemed connected to them. Vice President Luo has Mr. Mo tried hypnosis to awaken his memories in the past. The professor asked Luo Xia. Luo Xia shook her head, then said with a wry smile, no. At the time, doctors recommended conservative methods. The consequences of using hypnosis or medical technology to stimulate his brain were unknown, and I couldn't bear to risk it. But he had a checkup recently, and since he wants to try, I'm quite hopeful about letting him attempt it. The professor frowned. Cases like Mo Xian's weren't common, especially since it was caused by damage to his memory nerves. He had reviewed Mo Xian's past treatment reports provided by Luo Xia and wasn't entirely sure if this new approach was appropriate. How about this? Vice President Luo, the professor mused, will use a conservative treatment method, attempting to awaken his memories through hypnosis step by step. During this period, I'll have Dr. Shangwan work with me on his case. You were high school classmates, so you should be quite familiar with some of his background. Shangwan Meng nodded, then bowed her head and continued taking notes. She couldn't deceive herself. She still had feelings for Mo Xian, the boy she had liked since her youth, though he knew nothing of it. He had never crossed any lines, and her own shyness had prevented her from ever giving him any hints. Unlike Su Yanran, Shang Wanming's affection was pure. Now, seeing Mo Xian so cherished, though her heart ached, she wished him well even more. It was just that the relationship between Mo Xian, Luo Xia, and Luo Muki. She really couldn't quite figure it out. After further assessing Mo Xian's physical and psychological condition, the professor asked Luo Xia and Shang Wanming to step out. He was about to conduct the first hypnosis session with Mo Xian, attempting to awaken his most recent memories. "We'll conduct a test first," the professor explained to Luo Xia. "If it goes smoothly, I'll try deeper hypnotic therapy in the next session. During this time, it's best to ensure Mr. Mo's physical health and help him maintain a relaxed state. Perhaps the effects will be better then." Luo Xia nodded. She leaned down and gently kissed Mo Xian, who was already reclining on the chair, then smiled and said, "It's okay, Xiao Xian. Like I told you, just think of it as taking a nap and having a dream." Then, Luo Xia and Shang Wanming left the professor's office, one after the other. Just as Shang Wanming closed the door, Luo Xia suddenly asked, "You like him, don't you?" Shang Wanming's hand trembled involuntarily. It was an awful feeling being called out directly by his girlfriend, as if she'd been caught red-handed. "I can tell. I pay close attention to anything related to him," Luo Xia smiled. "A secret crush, right?" Luo Xia was always particularly wary of girls who got close to Mo Xian. Besides, she herself had a background in psychology. In truth, Shang Wanming might not even be her equal in perceptiveness. Just one glance at the way Shang Wanming looked at Mo Xian, and Luo Xia had guessed much. Shang Wanming didn't dare to look up at Luo Xia, astonished by how perceptive this woman was. But she had forgotten, women understand women best, especially a woman like Luo Xia, who was exceptionally sensitive when it came to matters concerning Mo Xian. You can rest assured, I never thought of bothering him," Shang Wanming said, her head lowered. Though now a psychologist, and no longer as timid as she once was, her naturally introverted personality left her feeling flustered. "It's all right. I wouldn't throw a tantrum just because some girl has a crush on him, would I? Though I really want to throw a tantrum," Luo Xia thought, but her expression remained unchanged, a slight smile playing on her lips as she said, "We might have to trouble you during this period." Shang Wanming couldn't help but smile wryly to herself. Compared to Su Yanran, this powerful heiress before her was much more composed. In the past, Su Yanran had privately warned Shang Wanming, her attitude truly grating. Looking at Luo Xia now, perhaps this was the so-called composure of the primary partner. Moreover, having witnessed his high school romance with Su Yanran, Shang Wanming could clearly see that Mo Xian's feelings for Luo Xia, and even for Luo Muki, were distinctly different from before. Previously, when she saw Mo Xian reluctantly dealing with Su Yanran, Shang Wanming had even fantasized about snatching Mo Xian away, feeling Su Yanran sometimes wasn't good enough for him. But now, while a twinge of jealousy remained, she was mostly happy for him. She felt Mo Xian had definitely found the right person, or people. Of course, if she knew that Luo Xia had just been plotting how to get her transferred from his hospital, and had even considered resorting to illegal means, if Shang Wanming dared to pester Mo Xian like Su Yanran did, she probably wouldn't be thinking this way. Waking from the hypnosis, Mo Xian and the professor looked at each other, both lost in thought. The professor was, after all, an authority in this field. Mo Xian had just attempted to awaken his most recent memories. Initially, everything seemed normal, but then things became not so normal. The professor truly didn't know how to describe it, so he handed Mo Xian a transcript, then patted his shoulder without a word. Actually, Mo Xian didn't even need the professor's notes. He clearly remembered the previously forgotten memories. Two women by his side, repeatedly giving him what felt like commands. Without exception, they were all telling him not to leave them, to stay by their sides forever. The feeling was incredibly strange, as if he were in a dream, yet everything that happened felt intensely real. Even now, Mo Xian somewhat doubted whether he had actually experienced it, or if it was just a dream. "You've likely been hypnotized before." The professor took off his thick glasses and couldn't help but rub his forehead. This is a subconscious psychological suggestion, something that alters your perception to some extent. The professor already had an inkling as to who was responsible. He even felt a twinge of regret. It seemed he had taken on a patient he shouldn't have. His memory hadn't returned, But he'd made an unexpected discovery. Mo Xian, who had originally hoped for his memory to recover and was anticipating a pleasant surprise, now felt nothing but shock, not a hint of joy. The professor could guess, and so could he. Many things suddenly became clear in his mind. For instance, the aromatherapy Luo Xia and Luo Muki had given him, and that time after drinking red wine at the hotel. Compared to Mo Xian's bewilderment, the professor was already contemplating how to write his resignation letter. Never mind that the Luo family had shares in this hospital, just their status as a top-tier conglomerate in Kyoto. The professor felt an indescribable bitterness. How had he gotten mixed up in something like this? Is it all right now? Luo Xia pushed open the door, a smile still on her face, showing no sign of anything unusual. Xian, how are you feeling? Mo Xian stared at her blankly, his heart a maelstrom of complex emotions. It wasn't as if she'd done anything terribly out of line, yet it made him deeply uncomfortable. Why would Luo Xia and Luo Muki do such a thing? They already had children with him. Was it really necessary to go to such great lengths just to be with him? What's wrong, Xian? Luo Xia, seemingly still the gentle older sister figure, came over and affectionately took his hand. Are you not feeling well? Mo Xian looked at Luo Xia. The Luo Xia from his hazy memories was almost entirely different from the one before him now. That voice was like a succubus luring him into a dream. Pathological, frenzied, and aggressively invasive. Although he had occasionally sensed that she and Luo Muki could be overly possessive, Mo Xian hadn't paid it much mind, merely thinking that his amnesia might have made them feel insecure. Why don't you go out first, Xian? Luo Xia said, gently tugging his hand. Your classmate is still outside, and you probably haven't seen each other in a while. The professor and I will discuss your condition a bit more. Mo Xian rose mechanically and left the office without a word. After the door closed, Luo Xia's expression reverted to its usual cool composure. She looked back at the professor and said, Don't worry, I won't make things difficult for you. Since I brought him here, I wasn't concerned about these things. The professor wanted to say something, but his throat merely twitched. Not a single word came out. He had been in practice for so many years, but he had never heard of, let alone seen, anything like this. Using hypnosis and psychological suggestion to alter a man's perception, just to keep it by their side? You know what to say and what not to say, don't you? Luo Xia's voice carried a hint of warning. You don't need to know about other matters. If he needs further memory recovery, I will bring him here. But if anyone else... Vice Director Luo, rest assured I understand. People in his position were almost all shrewd. He could somewhat guess the consequences of offending Luo Xia. It wouldn't just be his job on the line. Whether he'd even keep his life was an unknown. Mo Xian sat dazedly on a chair outside, the recent revelations utterly overwhelming. How many times had Luo Xia and Luo Muki done something like this? He recalled that the aromatherapy had been given to him some time ago, meaning what he had just remembered might only be a fragment. There could be even more, all forgotten by him. Even if he knew in his heart that their intentions might have been good, even if he had said he could accept both the good and the bad, the impact of this was still too much for Mo Xian. He even began to doubt how much of his current feelings for them were genuine, and how much was the result of psychological suggestion. Mo Xian, are you all right? Shangguan Meng, holding 2 cups of coffee, saw Mo Xian sitting there in a daze and called out to him softly. Mo Xian, as if jolted from a dream, looked at Shangguan Meng and gave an embarrassed smile. It's nothing, I'm fine. He shook his head. Seeing you with the professor, it looks like your work is going well. Shangguan Meng didn't answer, instead silently handing him a coffee. Then, she said gently, have some. You look a bit down. Mo Xian said thank you and took the coffee from her. As their fingertips brushed, Shangguan Meng felt her face burn uncontrollably. Actually, I saw you before when I was with Huangya. Shangguan Meng sat down 1 seat away from Mo Xian, cradling her disposable cup with both hands, staring quietly at the floor. You have a child? Yes. Mo Xian nodded. He had taken his daughter out to play more than once or twice before. It wasn't surprising that Shangguan Meng had seen him. Shangguan Meng wanted to say more, but Luo Xia pushed open the office door. Seeing Mo Xian, she said softly to him, Wait for me here. I'm going to get some medication prescribed for you. The professor said that pharmacological support might be needed for better results. Mo Xian looked up at Luo Xia, originally wanting to ask her why she had done this. But when he met her charming, almond-shaped eyes, he suddenly found himself speechless. There was no falseness in her emotions. The care and love were utterly sincere. It was just that the undercurrent he hadn't understood before, he seemed to grasp today. Hidden beneath the love was a hint of madness and obsession. That was why Luo Xia would be so frenzied every time they were intimately close. That was why she and Luo Miyuki had become increasingly possessive in their recent interactions with him, almost always by his side whenever there was a free moment. The love was real, but this love felt too heavy. He suddenly felt as if all of this had been meticulously planned by the sisters. What's wrong? Are you uncomfortable somewhere? Luo Xia was, as usual, like the gentle older sister figure. Mo Xian smiled and shook his head. It's nothing. I'll wait for you then. Luo Xia nodded, squeezed Mo Xian's hand, then gave Shangwan Meng a slight nod before turning to leave. Mo Xian watched a retreating figure and couldn't help but sigh. His mind was a mess right now. After all, these events had hit him too hard. He knew Luo Xia and Luo Miyuki had given a lot, but he'd never imagined they would resort to such extreme measures. Are you okay? Shangwan Meng asked softly. Is that Miss Luo, the young lady of the Luo family, your child's mother? That's right. Mo Xian replied with a wry smile. I'm fine, Shangwan. You should get back to your work. But Shangwan Meng didn't leave. Instead, for the first time, she lifted her head and looked directly into Mo Xian's eyes. You love her very much, but why do you seem so lost right now? Hearing Shangwan Meng's words, Mo Xian looked at her with some surprise. The Shangwan Meng, in his memory, wouldn't have asked such a direct question. No, it's just, I don't know how to face her right now. Mo Xian looked down at the black ring on his hand. You've seen my daughter, haven't you? She's cute, right? Yes, she looks a lot like you. Shangwan Meng smiled. Is it because of her sister? I saw you with Luo Miyuki that day. Seeming to fear Mo Xian might misunderstand, Shangwan Meng quickly explained, I didn't know her originally. A friend mentioned having seen Luo Miyuki, so... No, actually, both children are mine, and their mothers are the two sisters, respectively. Hearing Mo Xian's explanation, Shangwan Meng was surprisingly no longer astonished. Mo Xian didn't mind. He knew Shangwan Meng wasn't one to gossip, but he still said to her with a wry smile, Can you pretend you don't know? I'd rather not have others. Don't worry. Shangwan Meng nodded. Thank you for trusting me. 3 years as classmates. I know what kind of person you are, Mo Xian said with a smile. Actually, this whole thing, it was an accident. Mo Xian suddenly fell silent at this point. He wondered if even the pregnancies had been arranged by them. Luo Xia and Luo Miyuki had gone to such lengths for him. Now, he found himself reverting to that old state of insecurity and fear of loss, and he himself didn't know why. Even the memory of them drugging him at the hotel was slowly becoming clearer. Luo Xia and Luo Miyuki, while pleasuring him, had whispered words in his ear, words that were like an intoxicating, soul-corroding balm. He still firmly believed they wouldn't harm him, and even more so in their almost fanatical love. But such a pathological, paranoid love could sometimes create an inexplicable, immense pressure, and Mo Xian was currently in exactly that state. Did the hypnosis, just now, make you think of something bad? Hearing Shangwan Meng's question, Mo Xian looked at her, still a bit dazed. As their eyes met, Shangwan Meng felt her face flush. Mo Xian's eyes were still so captivating. She couldn't help but turn away, not wanting him to see the change in her expression. Wasn't necessarily something bad, I guess. Mo Xian sighed softly. How should I put it? It's just, some things I'd forgotten recently suddenly resurfaced in my mind. Is it related to them? Shangwan Meng asked, curious. But haven't you all been together? How could you forget recent things? Mo Xian didn't answer, merely remaining silent as if deep in thought. Shangwan Meng looked at the empty chair between them, like the desk that used to separate them when they sat one behind the other. So close, yet so far. Actually, I've known them for a very long time. It's just, I was injured back then and forgot about them. Mo Xian said slowly. All these years, they never forgot me. Isn't that a good thing? Shangwan Meng was a little surprised. She hadn't imagined Mo Xian and the Luo sisters had such a convoluted history. So, when you were with Su Yanran, you had forgotten them then, too? Pretty much. Mo Xian nodded. Actually, I really want to remember what happened back then. It's just, I found out some other things. Did they? Also hide things from you that they should be sorry for. No, quite the opposite. Hearing Shangwan Meng's words, Mo Xian couldn't help but give a wry smile. Or, in a way, I guess you could say they wronged me. After all, they drugged him, and more than once. Thinking about it that way, it didn't seem entirely off base. Can you tell me about it? Shangwan Meng suddenly looked at Mo Xian. I may be an intern, but I'm still a psychologist. Maybe. Maybe I can help you. Mo Xian looked at Shang Wanming, a little surprised. She consistently avoided his gaze, not meeting his eyes, so he wouldn't notice her unease. Forget it. You're the professor's assistant now. I probably can't hide it from you anyway. Mo Xian briefly told Shang Wanming what he had just remembered. After hearing it, Shang Wanming even forgot she had been deliberately avoiding eye contact with Mo Xian, staring at him with a face full of shock. If she hadn't seen Luo Xia and Luo Muki, if Mo Xian hadn't come here for hypnotherapy, if Mo Xian had told her these things somewhere else, even if he was the man she had secretly loved for years, Shang Wanming would have definitely thought either he was crazy or she was. After a long moment, Shang Wanming realized she had lost her composure. Blushing, she lowered her head and said, I'm sorry. I was just too shocked. Mo Xian gave a wry smile. Indeed, never mind Shang Wanming. He himself was still in a daze. Actually, don't you think they're very insecure? Shang Wanming thought for a moment, then said very seriously, I think they were traumatized by your amnesia, and it changed them emotionally. They were afraid of losing you again, so they resorted to such extreme methods. And you might have become their obsession, which also unintentionally put pressure on them. Shang Wanming trailed off, falling silent. So, love really can drive people mad. That saying wasn't a joke. If all this was true, then the ones with the real problem weren't amnesiac Mo Xian, but Luo Xia and Luo Muki. They were sick, afflicted with a disease called Mo Xian. Shang Wanming looked at the boy before her, the one she still kept buried in her heart, feeling even more at peace than the last time. I understand how you feel right now, Mo Xian. You feel this love is too heavy, so you're lost. You don't know how to face it. But even if it's heavy, they love you. Otherwise, they wouldn't have done these things, Shang Wanming said with a gentle smile. Perhaps she knew that once you underwent hypnotherapy, you would remember these things, but she still brought you here. Shang Wanming paused, then mustered her courage and moved a little closer to Mo Xian. You can talk to them properly. No matter what, everything they did because they care about you. Maybe their methods were wrong, but it's just because they're too insecure. After all, they lost you once, and that kind of loss is crueler than parting through life or death. You forgot them, forgot all your shared past experiences. So this pain made them paranoid and extreme. Thinking of it this way, everything Luo Xia and Luo Muki did seemed almost reasonable. Are you afraid of them? Shang Wanming looked up at Mo Xian and carefully asked this question. Mo Xian was taken aback for a moment, then nodded, and then shook his head. Mo Xian knew very well that he couldn't leave them anymore. Whether it was psychological suggestion or hypnosis, Mo Xian couldn't deny that he loved Luo Xia and Luo Muki. He was absolutely certain of this. Moreover, they had done far too much for him. His fear was only the fear of not being able to bear such a heavy love, not a fear of them. I really should talk to them properly, Mo Xian said in a low voice, as if answering Shang Wanming, and also as if talking to himself. I want to know, what exactly did they do? Actually, a voice in Shang Wanming's heart kept telling her that she should dissuade Mo Xian at this moment. She didn't know why. Was it her own selfish desire because she liked him, or did she feel it was wrong? But instead, she smiled and said to Mo Xian, I don't know what the future holds, but Mo Xian, I really hope you can be happy. Even if the person who makes you happy is never me. Mo Xian looked at Shang Wanming and suddenly smiled. Thank you, Shang Wan. I know what I need to do now. Xiao Xian, I bought the medicine. Luo Xia called out as she walked over, waving the bag in her hand. After thanking Shang Wanming, Mo Xian stood up and walked towards Luo Xia. Shang Wanming just sat there, watching the two of them leave hand in hand, and surprisingly, she didn't feel much pain in her heart. So, liking someone doesn't necessarily mean you have to be together. Shang Wanming leaned her head against the wall. The coffee in her hand had slowly grown cold. This unrequited love, with no beginning and no end, seemed to have finally reached its conclusion today. Downing the cold coffee in one gulp, Shang Wanming stood up and walked out of the hospital. As she passed the girl who was on a forge rip, the girl happened to be scrolling through short videos. Not disturbing you is my way of being gentle. Hearing the song coming from the phone, Shang Wanming felt an even greater sense of release in her heart. Shang Wanming let out a long breath, patted her cheeks, then took out her phone, found Mo Xian's WeChat, blocked him, and deleted him. Goodbye, my dearest love. I hope you can be happy. Xia, there's something I want. Let's talk about it when we get back. Okay, Xiao Xian. Mo Xian had been about to ask, but Luo Xia cut him off with a smile, then turned her head to gaze at the ever-changing streetscape outside the car window. Today, a driver had brought them both to the hospital. They sat in silence in the back seat, not a word exchanged. For some reason, the atmosphere felt somewhat oppressive. Mo Xian tried to speak several times, but seeing Luo Xia keep her head turned away, he didn't press further. Back at the manor, Mo Xian calmed down the two little ones who rushed at him. His mind was filled with too many questions, but Luo Xia merely sat on the sofa, a faint, inscrutable smile on her face. Luo Muki hadn't come downstairs. He didn't know what she was doing in her room. Xiao Xian, could you do me a favor? Luo Xia suddenly said softly. There's a copy of the Theory of Relativity in my study. Could you please get it for me? Mo Xian, somewhat puzzled, nodded. He told his daughters to wait for him. As he reached the stairs, Mo Xian looked back at Luo Xia. Xia, can we talk later? Of course. Whatever Xiao Xian wants to know, I'll tell you everything, Luo Xia said gently. Could you just get the book for me first, please? Mo Xian didn't answer, but turned and went upstairs, not noticing the smile on Luo Xia's face. It was morbid, yet held a sense of confidence, as if her prey had already fallen into the trap. Mo Xian entered Luo Xia's study. Usually, if he wanted a book, Luo Xia would get it for him. He wouldn't just enter when she wasn't around, especially since the study also contained some Luo family documents. No matter how close they were, it was best to maintain certain boundaries. Mo Xian quickly spotted the Theory of Relativity. He casually tried to pull out, but the book seemed fixed to the shelf, unmoving. Curious, Mo Xian fiddled with it, somehow pressing it down. Then, a hidden door to a secret room slowly rose on one side. Mo Xian couldn't believe his eyes. Luo Xia actually had a secret room in her study. A strange feeling suddenly welled up inside him. As if guided by an unseen force, he slowly walked to the entrance of the secret room. Gazing at the walls covered with photos of himself, Mo Xian understood instantly. Luo Xia had done this deliberately. She wanted him to see all this. Even so, he was stunned by the sight before him. Photos from high school, university, and even after he got together with them. The most striking one, right in the center, was a picture taken with them before he lost his memory. Below the photos was a table. On it were several blue folders and a messy pile of A4 paper, all covered with his name. He recognized Luo Xia's handwriting. Neat at first, then increasingly chaotic. Mo Xian could almost envision her writing these, her mood shifting from initial calmness to later frenzy. Under the light of the secret room, Mo Xian saw the topmost folder labeled Phase 1 Report. Mo Xian slowly opened the folder. The first page contained Luo Xia's notes. I already know Xiao Xian's current situation, but Miyuki and I don't yet have enough power or leverage to make the family compromise. Just as Xiao Xian said in the past, his original family life isn't happy. I really want to take him away directly, but I can't yet. My parents will adopt him into the Luo family because he saved Miyuki and me, but they won't agree to Miyuki and me being with him. I've already arranged for Sister Hui to keep an eye on him secretly. I'll handle anything that threatens him. Mo Xian glanced at the date. It must have been during his second year of high school. Did this mean Luo Xia had started planning so early? But back then, Luo Miyuki was only in her first year of high school. Flipping through, the pages mostly documented his high school life. Whenever Su Yanran was mentioned, Luo Xia used words like bitch, liar, and thief. That liar has started contacting Mo Jinping. I know. I could find a way to let Xiao Xian know too, but I won't. I really want to kill her. She stole the person Miyuki and I cherish most, and yet she dares to betray him. But it doesn't matter. To keep Xiao Xian with us, I can let her live, just like I haven't touched the Mo family to this day. Such a good control group. No matter how disgusting, I'll keep them around for now. The worse they are, the more Xiao Xian will appreciate how good Miyuki and I are to him. Mo Xian could hardly believe his eyes. Just how much had Luo Xia schemed. She had even factored in the Mo family and Su Yanran. However, she hadn't done anything overt, merely observed quietly. The reports were mostly about him. Others were only mentioned occasionally. Mo Xian quickly flipped through the A4 pages in the folder, finally finding what he wanted to know. I considered imprisonment, but I don't want to hurt Xiao Xian. Besides, he's Master Zhang's prized disciple in national martial arts, and his physical condition is excellent. I knew that from when we were together before. I haven't figured out the specific method yet. A plan is forming in my mind, but it's not the right time. There must be something to make him stay with us first. Perhaps. A child is the best bond. Miyuki told me she doesn't want to, and neither do I. A child would divert his attention, but it seems a child is the most suitable reason right now. And Mo Jinping wants to frame him. I know. This is our chance. I have a new drug from the lab. I just need to make him take it then. So, that day wasn't an accident at all. Mo Xian slowly placed the file on the table. Which means, the one who drugged me that day wasn't Mo Jinping, but Mo Xian didn't read further, because he saw Phase 2 report. He immediately picked it up and opened it. Miyuki and I have found Xiao Xian. We can now begin Phase 2. Phase 1 was groundwork. I needed to understand him and simultaneously find a way to make the family concede on this matter in the end. As for Phase 2, it's the preparation stage. Miyuki and I must control our maddening love for him. We must provide him with the best emotional support, and of course material support must also be just right. I'm not short on money, so this isn't difficult. He lacks affection, so we will give him enough. And in some matters, we need to make him feel needed. Of course, we are sincere in doing these things. Additionally, he needs to personally participate in the children's upbringing and care. Blood ties are important, but his care is more so. While he cares for the children will also become chains that bind him. Miyuki and I will make him gradually develop habits, the habit of having us around, and then habitually relying on us. More importantly, only with the groundwork of Phase 2 can I proceed to the next phase. Post-hypnotic suggestion for Xiao Xian to further amplify and solidify these things in his mind, even to some extent influence his cognition. Mo Xian felt his scalp tingle. Even though Luo Xia emphasized in her notes that these actions were sincere, thinking about everything in the past, Mo Xian still felt a sense of unreality. They had even considered all this. He felt like prey they had targeted, caught in an elaborate trap they had set, just waiting for him to fall in. As his trembling hand reached for the Phase 3 report, there was a sudden noise behind him. Mo Xian whipped his head around. The secret room door had closed. Luo Xia and Luo Miyuki stood smiling behind him. In the dim light, their appearance was inexplicably unsettling. You've seen it, Xiao Xian, Luo Xia said, slowly walking towards him. Look, these are all photos of you. I had people take some, and others I took myself or secretly after we got together. Now you know, brother, Luo Miyuki added, coming closer. I know this might seem excessive, but brother, we love you. We love you even more than you've ever known. The two sisters flanked him, embracing him just like in his dreams. He even felt a strange sense of suffocation. Xiao Xian, you won't leave us, right? Luo Xia's gaze was no longer veiled, filled with a morbid intensity and madness. Don't abandon us again. Whatever you want, I'll give it to you. Whether it's me or Miyuki, anything you desire, we can give you. You just need to look at us, stay with us forever. Besides, you can't leave us anymore, can you? It was the first time Mo Xian had seen them like this. The first time he realized their love was far heavier than he had ever imagined. But Luo Xia was right. He couldn't leave them. He had grown accustomed to having them by his side, and a deep, unbreakable dependence on them had formed in his heart. In the dim secret room, the photos plastered on the walls mirrored Mo Xian's own confinement. His heart was bound by chains, the other end held firmly by the sisters. Luo Xia's goal was achieved. She didn't need to prepare a cage or chains for him, because Mo Xian had slowly been locked into their grasp. I understand. Mo Xian sighed, a helpless smile on his face. I won't leave you. Strange, Mo Xian hasn't been around for days, has he? A senior classmate remarked, looking around. Mo Xian hadn't shown up to their group for several days. I haven't seen him in the university library either. Usually, even if he skipped our group meetings, he'd be at the library or the computer lab, right? The senior classmate was curious. There's a new project. Isn't he going to join? Probably not, their advisor said, not looking up from the documents in his hand. He's joined Rongxing now. He was busy with his thesis before, and Rongxing informed me that there's a program he might need to participate in. Plus, it seems he's going abroad soon. Abroad? Yes, apparently with the Luo family's second daughter. Other senior students couldn't help but sigh. Being handsome really had its perks. Almost everyone at Jingdu University knew how deeply Luo Miyuki was in love with Mo Xian. She'd come over every day with nothing else to do, willingly keeping him company even if he was just in the library. Such a tedious activity, yet she never seemed to tire of it. But I heard the Luo family's eldest daughter is also going abroad, a senior female student said doubtfully. My family is in business too, and we have some dealings with the Luos. My dad heard from a Luo Corporation employee that the eldest Luo daughter is going abroad as well. Maybe it's a business trip, Or she's accompanying her younger sister. I heard Luo Xia and Luo Miyuki are very close. Who knows? The advisor couldn't stand it anymore and finally spoke up. Get busy with your own work. Anyone who knows would say this is an R&D group. Anyone who doesn't would think it's a chaotic marketplace. The advisor still felt a sense of regret. Mo Xian was truly a promising talent. He had actually considered subtly hinting to Mo Xian not to invest too much of his emotions in Luo Miyuki. Affairs of wealthy families. Who could ever say for sure? Today they might treat you like a treasure. Tomorrow they could kick you out unceremoniously. He had seen too many such cases. Not to mention Mo Xian's unreliable family background. Even now, he had nothing, and his only grandmother had passed away. Sigh, such an ill-fated child. The advisor sighed. I hope the Luo family's second daughter is truly sincere with him. Just as he said that, the door suddenly opened, and Mo Xian slowly walked in. He exchanged a few words with the advisor and handed him a USB drive. Leaving so soon, the advisor was a bit surprised as Mo Xian handed over his thesis. Mo Xian's eyes held a hint of resignation and fatigue as he said, Yes, only the final visa process is left. It should be approved soon. I'm not sure when I'll have time to come back, so I wanted to give you the thesis first. The advisor looked at him, wanting to say something, but hesitating. Then he saw Luo Miyuki outside the half-open door, playing on her phone while frequently glancing inside at Mo Xian. Sighing, the advisor smiled at Mo Xian and said, I wish you happiness, Mo Xian. Mo Xian smiled, reached out to hug his advisor, then turned and walked out. The moment he stepped out, Luo Miyuki clung to his arm. The sincere love in the girl's eyes showed no trace of falsehood. The advisor shook his head. Perhaps his worries were unfounded. Why didn't you wait in the car? I was quick, really, Mo Xian said, looking at Luo Miyuki, who was pressed tightly against him. Right, the luggage. It's all right, Gidge. Uncle Zheng will take care of it for us, Luo Miyuki said with a smile. I can't bear to be away from you for even a second right now, Gidge. Mo Xian gave a wry smile. After that day in the secret room, the two sisters made no effort to hide their morbid possessiveness. Mo Xian had finally managed to come out for a bit, and Luo Miyuki still had to stick to him like glue. It's okay if you don't follow me, Mo Xian had just started speaking when he met Luo Miyuki's suddenly strange gaze. Of course, it's best if you follow me. Mo Xian sighed and corrected himself. Let's go. We need to head back. Xia and the children are waiting for us. Okay. Luo Miyuki's eyes returned to normal. Gidge, can you make sweet and sour ribs for dinner? Actually, these past few days, Mo Xian seemed to understand her and Luo Xia's state. Shang Wanmeng was right. Their feelings had slowly become pathological after he lost his memory. Ultimately, it was because of him. Mo Xian didn't go back to that professor to recover his memory. Luo Xia told him it wasn't necessary. Mo Xian didn't ask why. If she didn't want him to go, then he wouldn't, right? Of course, he didn't know that Luo Xia simply didn't want Mo Xian to see Shang Wanmeng. Even though she was well aware that Shang Wanmeng was different from Su Yanran, she still didn't want him to meet her. However, when Mo Xian asked about it, Luo Xia did tell him the truth, excluding the part about Shang Wanmeng, of course. Because it's not needed anymore, Luo Xia said to Mo Xian with a smile. Even without your past memories, you are still you. Perhaps one day, he would remember again. But for now, he no longer thought about whether his memory could be restored. Besides, for the current Mo Xian, it seemed he didn't have the mind to dwell on such things anymore. For instance, right now, when he saw Luo Xia and Hui Jie waiting by his car in the parking lot, he wasn't even surprised. Xiao Xian, all done with your work? Luo Xia smiled. I couldn't wait at home, so I came to the university to pick you up. Mo Xian didn't know whether to laugh or cry. In the past, they could clearly restrain themselves, but now it was as if they were completely unwilling to be separated from him. These past few days, his two daughters had been complaining endlessly that their mommy and Annie had stolen their daddy. But often, a single look from the two sisters would make the two pitiable little ones dare only to sob quietly, not uttering another word. What was most exasperating was that Luo Xia couldn't even be bothered to pretend anymore. She would directly grab the two little ones and say, You must be obedient. You are the crystallization of our love with your father. We can have more crystallizations, but there is only this one love. Mo Xian wanted to say something from the side, but in the end, he could only shake his head helplessly. He would have to comfort his daughters properly later. After all, their mother was so unreliable. What was most infuriating was that Mo Xian finally understood why the two of them could always find him. Just yesterday, he saw an application on Luo Xia's phone. Then he finally realized that the phone Luo Xia had given him back then had a tracking system installed, along with a listening function. Mo Xian didn't even feel angry. Thinking about that room full of his photos, he even felt that if they hadn't done something like this, he would have been rather surprised. So, just how many things are there that I don't know about you two? Mo Xian couldn't help but ask curiously after getting into the car. I always feel like there's something else you haven't told me. How could that be, Gidge? Luo Muki said with an innocent, harmless look. Look, you've seen sister's reports, and we've told you about the medicine and incense we used on you, right? Luo Xia didn't answer, but nodded very earnestly. Mo Xian always felt something was off. These two sisters' schemes were just too deep. He couldn't handle them at all. However, after thinking about it, Mo Xian felt somewhat relieved. Just as he had told Su Yinran in the past, Luo Xia and Luo Muki would not betray him, much less harm him. Of course, aside from the drugging and certain activities that left his back aching and legs sore. As for Hui Jia, who was driving in the front seat, the corners of her mouth twitched involuntarily when she heard their words. Things had already been laid bare to this extent, so why were her two young mistresses still pretending? Did they dare tell Mo Xian what surprises they had prepared for him? Never mind. She was, after all, a Luo family employee. The one who would suffer in the future was Mo Xian, so why should she be anxious? Glancing at Mo Xian in the rearview mirror, Hui Jia sighed inwardly. Do you really think you know everything, Mr. Mo? No. You have to believe they will always have new surprises waiting for you. When Mo Jinping pushed open the villa door, a police car was parked outside. Hello, ma'am. Are you Mo Jinping? An officer approached, showed her his badge. I'm from the Jingdu City Police Department's Economic Crime Investigation Division. Your mother's illegitimate son, Jiang Xifeng, has been apprehended. Mo Jinping was a little surprised. She hadn't expected them to catch him so quickly. The officer detailed the process. Jiang Xifeng had been under police surveillance even before he planned to go abroad, and his father, far overseas, had vanished without a trace. Much of the money had been transferred overseas by him through transnational accounts, with only a few 100,000 remaining. Mo Jinping listened numbly to the officer's account. None of it seemed to matter much to her anymore. Before Qin and I passed away, she had left everything to her. Mo Jinping, with no particular skills, stayed alone in the Mo family villa. She didn't know where to go or who she was waiting for. After a series of questions and verifications, the police informed her she could retrieve the money at any time. Could you donate it for me? Mo Jinping suddenly asked. This money doesn't mean anything to me now. The officer looked at her and sighed helplessly. He had learned a fair bit about the Mo family's affairs during his investigation. They had brought all this upon themselves. No one else was to blame. I can apply to my superiors. We'll be in touch regarding the follow-up. The officer jotted down his number on a notepad, tore off the page, and handed it to Mo Jinping. This is my number. You can contact me anytime if you have questions. After the officer left, Mo Jinping sat dazedly on the sofa. Her eldest sister hadn't returned, and she hadn't tried to find out about her. With the Mo family now in ruins, it was a blessing if others didn't kick them while they were down. Why seek further humiliation? As for her second sister, she was completely out of touch. Mo Jinping only knew she had gone to Europe, but not where specifically. As for Mo Xian, Mo Jinping had initially thought of looking for him at Jingdu University. After much inquiry, she learned that Mo Xian rarely went to school anymore. It seemed he was planning to move abroad and settle down with the Luo family's second young lady. Now, in the Mo family, some were dead, others gone, leaving only her. She had money, but her days were spent drinking and staring into space. Her once delicate and beautiful features were now haggard and gaunt. Sighing, she picked up a can of beer from the table. Just as she opened it, the phone rang. Ms. Mo Jinping, hello. This is the French embassy. Is Mo Yingyin your second sister? Mo Jinping froze for a moment, then instinctively affirmed. The person on the other end sighed, their voice filled with regret. Please accept our condolences. Ms. Mo Yingyin died in a car accident while traveling in Paris. Clatter. The beer can slipped from Mo Jinping's hand and hit the floor. She didn't hear the rest of what was said, collapsing to the ground and erupting into desperate, broken sobs. Mo Jinping probably never imagined he'd run into Jiang Xifeng in prison, along with Cheng Jiahao, the one who had conspired with him to frame Mo Xian. Cheng Jiahao knew Mo Jinping was in trouble. He had also been involved in online gambling and borrowing. He had planned to betray Mo Jinping for a lighter sentence, but unexpectedly, Someone anonymously provided evidence, leading to him and Mo Jinping successfully reuniting in prison, along with Jiang Xifeng. However, it was as if the other inmates had received some kind of order. They repeatedly and deliberately beat them. The prison guards, accustomed to such things, would make a token effort to stop it, after which the inmates would only strike harder. Well done. Standing outside the prison, Uncle Zheng handed a card to a man. 2 million, all in there. The young mistresses have given instructions. Don't kill them right away. Torture them for a month or two first. All right, I understand. The man nodded. But that sickly Jiang Xifeng probably won't last. You know he's a pretty boy, and someone has taken a liking to him. Uncle Zheng frowned, a flash of disgust in his eyes. Tell him not to play him to death so quickly. If it comes to it, have him go for Mo Jinping. He looks human enough, right? Make do. Yes, understood. Meanwhile, Mo Jinping sat in her office chair, a cigarette between her fingers. Before her lay a document detailing all the assets she had accumulated over the years. It was a transfer agreement. With her signature, all of it would belong to the Yi family. Mo Jinping picked up the pen and signed her name without a moment's hesitation. However, her face bore a confident smile. Upon returning to the manor from the prison, a maid approached, looking somewhat alarmed. Steward Zheng, the eldest young mistress, and the second young mistress took Mr. Mo and the two young ladies out, and there's been no word from them since. Oh, I know. It's fine. Uncle Zheng appeared unconcerned. You all carry on with your work. No need to worry about unnecessary things. As time slowly passed, many employees at the Luo Corporation gradually noticed that Luo Xia and Luo Muki hadn't been to the company for a long time. Also missing were Sister Hui and the sister's female bodyguards. President Luo, the eldest young mistress, and the second young mistress left without a word, and the staff are all talking about it. Luo Tan, who was busy with work, heard his male assistant, glanced up at him, and said lightly, then issue an internal memo. Say they've gone to expand overseas operations. Are these people too idle? Is this even worth discussing? Weren't Xia and Miyuki already in the process of handing over their work? But it's so sudden, especially the eldest young mistress. She handled so much of the work, the assistant said, troubled. Sister Hui was taken along too, so a lot is falling on you alone. Oh, Luo Tian shot him a fierce glare and said through gritted teeth, do you even hear what you're saying? Wasn't it all damn well on me alone in the past too? It's fine. My dad and my second uncle are ready to help. A trustworthy person will be appointed to the vice president position. You just send out the announcement. The assistant nodded. There was no need for him to ask more. However, glancing at Luo Tan, he hesitated before saying, President, somehow I get the feeling your mood is actually quite good. Luo Tian looked up at him. The assistant saw Luo Tian's somewhat reddened eyes and was nearly startled. Years. It's been years. Do you have any idea how I've lived all these years? All right, I'm paying. Treat the entire company to milk tea. I'll cover snacks too. Get the most expensive ones. I'm in a great mood today. Everyone gets an extra bonus this month. Looking at Luo Tian, the assistant couldn't help but sigh. Just how much had their president suffered? By the way, President Mr. Mo is also missing. Rongxing called, the assistant said after a thought. He has an outstanding program he hasn't submitted, and they can't reach him. Rongxing wants to know what you'd like to do. Tell them, if he doesn't submit the program, find someone to create a backup. Oh, and tell them to give Mo Xin a raise, Luo Tian mused. Double his current salary, and at year-end, give him a bonus equivalent to 3% of company shares as dividends. If there's no money, I'll pay for it. Also, is that a Mo Xian? No, in my heart, he's a living bodhisattva, a hero, the great mighty heavenly dragon. Got carried away, misspoke. The assistant watched his excited president with a wry smile. He knew a little about some things, but didn't fully understand, like why Luo Tian was so afraid of his cousins, or why he always looked at Mo Xian as if seeing his saviors. However, the assistant was curious. Luo Xia and Luo Muki would still contact them about work matters, but Rongxing had completely lost touch with Mo Xian. It wasn't just Rongxing. Jingdu University, Grandma Zhang's family, and even Grandma Su couldn't reach Mo Xian anymore. President, may I ask an inappropriate question? The assistant thought for a moment, then asked, Mr. Mo, he hasn't met with any accident, has he? Hearing the assistant, Luo Tian glanced at him and couldn't help but smile. Don't worry, I guarantee he's fine. Those two cousins of mine would let something happen to themselves before they let anything happen to him. Pausing, Luo Tian sighed and said, as for other things, Well, that I don't know. Time rewound to when Mo Xian and his family of 5 left the manor, leaving so suddenly. It still feels a bit unsettling. Mo Xian looked at the place he had lived for over 3 years, feeling a wave of emotion. Their luggage had been sent off much earlier. The maids at home still thought the family of 5 was just going out for fun. Luo Xia and Luo Muki hadn't explained, so they weren't aware. However, Mo Xian felt the entourage was a bit much. Why had Sister Hui come along with the female bodyguards? Xian, don't worry. Luo Muki smiled, twisted open a bottle of water, took a sip herself, then handed it to Mo Xian. Mo Xian didn't think much of it. After all, they had kissed so many times, why fuss over this? But just after he took a large gulp, he saw Luo Muki spit out the water that was in her mouth. Luo Xia, sitting in the front passenger seat, smiled at Mo Xian and winked at him. Hey, have you two gotten addicted to playing tricks? Mo Xian looked at the water bottle in his hand. What's the point of drugging me now? It's a surprise for you. Luo Xia's voice was gentle, but her eyes held an unsettling glint. Don't worry, little Xian, we won't harm you. I don't believe you. Mo Xian only felt his vision go dark, and then he completely lost consciousness. Supported by her mother, Su Yanran walked the streets of London. The wound Mo Jinping had inflicted on her was ultimately irreversible. Compounded by a series of blows, Su Yanran had developed depression and an anxiety disorder. Her mother, at her wit's end, had taken her abroad on holiday, hoping to ease her mind. Nearly 2 years had passed since she last saw Mo Xian. Su Yanran had secretly tried to find him, even discovering that he had visited Shangwan Meng's hospital. When she went to see Shangwan Meng, her former desk mate, Shangwan Meng almost didn't recognize the woman who had once been their school belle. Her face was pale, her hair disheveled, and she looked much thinner than she had in high school. Upon learning the reason for her visit, Shangwan Meng merely glanced at her indifferently, then smiled and said, I don't understand. Why are you still looking for him? Indeed, why was she still looking for him? Su Yanran herself didn't know. Shangwan Meng told her nothing, only kindly advising, you should see a therapist. After that, Su Yanran had been undergoing psychotherapy. This trip abroad was also her mother's suggestion, a way for her to relax. Daddy, I want this one. I want it too, but we don't have any money. Hearing the familiar Mandarin, Su Yanran turned her head in surprise. Mo Xian was wearing a black hoodie, holding each of his 2 daughters by the hand. Luo Wei'er and Luo Shuer had grown taller. The once chubby little dumplings now looked as lovely and beautiful as 2 exquisite dolls. Mo Xian's hair was a bit longer, and he still wore his familiar black-rimmed glasses. The father and his 2 daughters were gazing at the cakes in a dessert shop, the girls looking aggrieved, while Mo Xian wore an expression of utter helplessness. From a short distance, Su Yanran stared at him blankly. Mo Xian was still Mo Xian, unchanged. Su Yanran inadvertently noticed his left hand. The black ring was still on his index finger, the only difference being a silver wedding band now on his ring finger. Is that Mo Xian? Su Yanran's mother had spotted him too. Should we go over? No, Mom, don't. Su Yanran knew very well that if Mo Xian was with his daughters, Luo Xia and Luo Muki were likely nearby, and she really didn't want to run into those 2 sisters. We finally made it to England for a trip, and of all things, your mothers wouldn't even let me bring any money out. They've taken all the money from my bank cards. Mo Xian sighed, his voice full of helplessness. He looked back at his 2 daughters and said, Never mind, I'll call them. Let your moms come over and buy it for you. Luo Wei'er and Luo Shuer could only sigh in resignation. Why was their daddy so pitiful? Their moms were the bad guys. They were so rich, yet they never allowed daddy to have money on him, and they wouldn't even let him go out freely. The most hateful thing was, ever since they left their home country, their moms had been trying to snatch daddy away from them every single day. They were always dragging daddy off somewhere, and then they'd just disappear. Daddy, why do you always give in to mommy and auntie? Luo Wei'er looked at her father, aggrieved. You never object to anything they say. Mo Xian smiled, reached out, and stroked his daughter's head. Because daddy loves them, doesn't he? He was used to it anyway. Those 2 sisters had, in the end, managed to trap him one last time, but this time he was willing. Perhaps Luo Xia and Luo Muki's way of thinking was different from others. In a daze, he had heard the content of their final hypnosis. Mr. Mo Xian, in the future, you will be Luo Xia and Luo Muki's husband. You will love them forever, never betray them, forever, stay by their side, and never abandon them again. What else could he do? He had to agree. No matter how much they tormented him, even if their love was pathological and heavy, Mo Xian still endured it willingly, almost finding a perverse sweetness in it. In the end, they all lived together with Mo Xian in the Seaview villa they had chosen previously. Luo Xia and Luo Muki had no intention or actions of imprisoning Mo Xian. However, they still wouldn't leave his side whenever he went out, and his phone was still tracked and monitored. It's just their insecurity. It's understandable. Mo Xian would always console himself. Take this trip to England, for instance. He had wanted to take his daughters for a stroll nearby, but to say his pockets were cleaner than his face would be an understatement. The sisters had cleared out his bank cards long ago. Men get into trouble when they have money. Be good, Xiao Xian. Let me hold on to it and manage your finances, okay? Mo Xian had listened helplessly to Luo Xia's nonsense, yet he had still given her his money. It was only today that he suddenly understood his father-in-law, Luo Sheng's feelings towards his mother-in-law Shen Qingyan. There was nothing wrong with indulging them. No one in this world would love him more than they did. And besides, weren't his thoughts completely filled with them too? Mo Xian picked up his phone. He didn't even dial, just said, somewhat exasperated, "Come pick us up, will you?" In no time, a black Rolls-Royce Phantom pulled up in front of the one adult and two children. "I bet you've been following me all along, haven't you?" Mo Xian said, a headache coming on as he noted their speed. "Why didn't you just come out with me and the girls in the first place? What's the point of all this? Tracking and listening in for such a short walk." "Oh, but didn't you say you wanted to take the girls for a casual stroll?" Luo Xia cooed, tugging at Mo Xian's arm. "Muki and I were just worried. It's your first time in England. We were afraid you'd get lost." "Exactly, brother. See how much sister and I trust you." Luo Muki chimed in, clinging to Mo Xian's other arm, nearly knocking Luo Shuer over. "We even kept 100-meter distance from you this time." Mo Xian sighed helplessly. He had lost count of how many times he had sighed in the past nearly 2 years. Luo Xia and Luo Muki were still breathtakingly beautiful. In fact, with the passage of time, they had gained an added touch of maturity and allure. Su Yanran, watching from the shadows, wondered if it was her imagination, but it seemed the sisters were not only radiant, but their figures had somehow become even more enhanced. "All right, go get the girls their cake first," Mo Xian said resignedly, gesturing to the dessert shop behind them. "We have a flight to catch tomorrow." After a thought, Mo Xian looked at Luo Xia and Luo Muki and asked cautiously, "But you're both pregnant. Is it okay to travel back at this time?" Yes, despite Luo Xia and Luo Muki not wanting to get pregnant on the one hand, while shamelessly dragging Mo Xian into things on the other, they had ended up pregnant again, simultaneously. As for why simultaneously, it was probably for the same reasons as when they conceived Luo Weier and Luo Shuer. "It's fine. You heard at the hospital yesterday. The pregnancies are stable, and the doctor said flying is okay." Luo Xia smiled. "Besides, the morning sickness isn't too bad this time, not so noticeable, so we thought we'd go back now." Actually, Luo Xia and Luo Muki had considered aborting the babies, but in the end, they couldn't go through with it, because they were Mo Xian's children with them. No matter how much they didn't want the children to compete for his affection, they couldn't bring themselves to do it. Even if they sometimes deliberately provoked their 2 older daughters, they still loved them dearly. But the one they loved most, always, was Mo Xian. "I'm sorry. The last time you were pregnant, as the father of our children, I wasn't there by your side." Mo Xian took their hands. "All right, now that we bought the desserts, let's head back, shall we? By the way, we and the others. We sent them back to the country first. It's better to go back and focus on the pregnancies this time, right?" Luo Xia said with a smile. "I told my cousin come pick us up. He was so happy he cried." Su Yanran saw the matching rings on Luo Xia's and Luo Muki's right hands, identical to Mo Xian's. To her, they were an unbearable eyesore. Su Yanran watched as Mo Xian led Luo Xia and Luo Muki, who in turn led their 2 daughters. The family of 5 happily bought their desserts, got into the car, and slowly disappeared from her sight. "Let's go, Yanran." Her mother gently tugged her daughter's hand. "You and he have long been worlds apart." Su Yanran didn't answer, nor did she cry. She just smiled faintly and said, "Yes, that's true." Fate seemed to be playing a cruel joke on her, letting her see Mo Xian again in another country, only to show her how well he was doing now. "All right, when I was sleeping last night, you 2 didn't do anything, did you?" Mo Xian, who was in the car, coaxing his daughters, suddenly looked up. It wasn't that he was traumatized, but he had a nagging feeling that someone had been whispering in his ear the previous night. "Oh, brother, honestly." Luo Muki, sitting in the passenger seat, turned around and pouted coquettishly. "We already said that time was the last time. How can you distrust us like this, brother? Mo Xian scratched his head. After thinking for a long time, he figured nothing seemed amiss, and besides, they were pregnant, so they couldn't possibly do anything to him. He decided not to dwell on it. Luo Xia and Luo Miyuki exchanged a glance, a familiar smile appearing on their faces. They had indeed resorted to their old tricks, drugging Mo Xian again. Only this time, the suggestion planted in his mind was, "You mustn't neglect us because of the future children, okay?" As for whether it worked, who knew?